Chapter 555. The fiery red sword light hovered above the four people's heads for a while before it finally returned to his arm. She stared at Master Song Feng and said faintly, "Senior Song Feng, you can't use your full strength here." He didn't attack, but he didn't hide his intention to show off. Master Song Feng didn't say anything or attack. He was irritable, but he wasn't stupid. He had enmity with so many nascent soul cultivators in the celestial pole, but he could live well until now because he was strong but also because he was smart enough. He knew when he could take advantage of others and when he should stop. White Tiger's breath restrained his devil aura. He didn't dare to come here until he entered the nascent soul realm after cultivating primordial devil great technique, and he could move normally only after he advanced to the middle stage. Here, he could only use 70% of his strength at most. Those juniors had all formed their nascent souls, especially Qin Shoujing, who had advanced to the middle stage. Besides, there was also the old witch from Yunzhong eyeing them covetously. If they fought, wouldn't that be exactly what she wanted? With that thought in mind, Master Song Feng said, "When this is over, I'll deal with you." He then found a corner to rest and recuperate. Seeing this, the four people secretly sighed in relief. Although each of them had formed their nascent souls, they were still afraid of facing the number one cultivator in the celestial pole who had accumulated power for hundreds of years. If they really fought, they might not necessarily lose. At the very least, she felt that if he could use the vermilion bird bow, he would be seriously injured even if he could withstand it. Seeing this, Xianxia secretly passed a bottle of medicinal pills to Nie Wuxiang. "Quickly heal yourself." Nie Wuxiang forced a smile and pushed it back. "No need." Healing medicinal pills had a certain effect on devil cultivators, but primordial devil aura wasn't the same. For her, even if she only had one breath left, she could still recover. Just as she was about to take a good rest, she suddenly saw someone coming from another corner. Right now, there were 3 parties in the sacrificial temple. One party was the 4 of them, one party was Master Song Feng, and the last party was Devil Monarch Night Frost and the 2 devil cultivators. In terms of strength, the 3 parties were about the same, forming a balanced situation where no one could attack at will. The 4 of them couldn't reconcile with Master Song Feng. As for Devil Monarch Night Frost, although they didn't have any grudges, they didn't dare to trust him. At this moment, the one walking towards them was the maid, Hong Xiao. 10 feet away from them, Hong Xiao stopped and bowed. "This servant is Hong Xiao. Under the orders of my city lord, I invite everyone here for a chat." With Night Frost Demon Monarch here, Hong Xiao restrained her emotions and politely invited him. She glanced in that direction. Demon Monarch Night Frost was still expressionless, but he gave him a slight nod. Before he could say anything, Jing Xingji interrupted, "If you want to chat, just come over." "Why do you want us to go over?" Hong Xiao lowered her eyes and said, "My city lord is only here for one item. As for the other items, she will not fight with you. Everyone, please be at ease." Right after she finished speaking, Xianxia said, "Miss Hong Xiao, you almost took my life the first time we met." Hearing this, Hong Xiao smiled embarrassedly, not knowing what to say. She was Devil Monarch Night Frost's maid, but in fact, she was equivalent to his disciple. There were many people in the city lord's mansion who took care of those mundane matters, so she didn't need to do them. She only needed to deal with some things that were inconvenient for Devil Monarch Night Frost, and these things were usually paved by someone else. On the other side, Devil Monarch Night Frost finally came. Unlike progenitor Miao Ying, this late-stage nascent soul great cultivator still maintained the appearance of a 17 or 18-year-old girl. She was young and beautiful. If she hid her cultivation level and appeared in front of others, she would probably be regarded as a junior who had just stepped on the path to immortality. Fellow Daoist Devil Monarch Night Frost's gaze fell on Xianxia first. "I didn't expect you to form your nascent soul after we parted at the Sea of Returning Ruins." Xianxia smiled slightly. Nie Wuxiang told her that her deeds had spread throughout Yunzhong, so Devil Monarch Night Frost naturally knew she had formed her nascent soul. However, since Devil Monarch Night Frost was so polite to her as a late-stage nascent soul great cultivator, she had to give him some face. Mo Tienga stood up and saluted him. Senior Nightfrost, long time no see. You're still as elegant as ever. She's just an old witch. What's there to talk about elegant? Devil Monarch Nightfrost said faintly, then looked at Qin Shi. Fellow Daoist Qin. Qin Shi returned the salute. Fellow Daoist Nightfrost. Devil Monarch Nightfrost glanced at Jing Xingji and Ye Wuxiang, then asked, "How should I address you two?" Jing Xingji chuckled. "I'm Jing Xingji. Greetings, fellow Daoist Nightfrost." Seeing his frivolous attitude, Tianxian snorted coldly. Devil Monarch Nightfrost turned a blind eye to him and looked at Nie Wuxiang. Nie Wuxiang sat cross-legged inside the spirit-concealing formation and said, "I'm Nie Wuxiang. I'm injured. Please forgive me, fellow Daoist." If a late-stage nascent soul cultivator took the initiative to talk to an early-stage nascent soul cultivator, who wouldn't be flattered? Nie Wuxiang's behavior could be said to be rude. Devil Monarch Nightfrost didn't mind. He nodded lightly, then pointed to the two people beside him. "This is my disciple Tianxian and my maid Hongxiao." After greeting them, Devil Monarch Nightfrost said, "Fellow Daoists, you don't mind us coming uninvited, do you?" Qin Shi smiled and said, "How could I dare? Fellow Daoist, if you have any advice, please say it directly." Night Frost Demon Monarch glanced at Master Song Feng in the other corner and said, "I don't dare to give advice. I just want to make it clear to fellow Daoists that we didn't come here with the intention of becoming enemies with you." "Is that so?" Mo Tienga smiled and glanced at Tianxian and Hongxiao. Devil Monarch Night Frost understood her meaning, but he said, "Fellow Daoists have some disagreements with that fellow Daoist Song Feng. Presumably, you don't want to have a conflict with us, right?" Mo Tienga withdrew her gaze and didn't say anything. Devil Monarch Nightfrost was a late-stage nascent soul cultivator, so he didn't lower himself to explain to them. Instead, he spoke in a domineering manner. Mo Tienga knew he was right, but if they showed weakness easily, they would be at a disadvantage if they continued talking. Qin Shi chuckled and said, "What fellow Daoist said is reasonable. It seems you also think so?" Devil Monarch Nightfrost paused and looked at them meaningfully. "Yes, we didn't come here from thousands of miles away to fight." Qin Shi nodded and said, "Since that's the case, fellow Daoist, you might as well speak your mind." Devil Monarch Nightfrost said, "We came here for one thing. As long as fellow Daoists don't fight with us, we won't be your enemy." Qin Shi had heard about this from Hongxiao, so he smiled. "If it has nothing to do with us, we naturally won't fight for it." He didn't say anything definite. There were some things they could give up, but there were some things they couldn't. "It should have nothing to do with you." Yi Shuang's lips curved slightly, revealing a smile. She was a very beautiful woman. Although she was a devil cultivator, she had a cold demeanor like snow. In addition, Devil Monarch Nightfrost paused and looked at Master Song Feng. "Fellow Daoists, what do you think of those ghost cultivators?" Mo Tienga's gaze also turned to Master Song Feng. They didn't put up a soundproof barrier when they talked here, so Master Song Feng must have heard them clearly. However, he didn't move at all. He just turned into a black cloud and curled up in a corner to recuperate. Qin Shi pondered for a moment, then asked, "Excuse me, how many ghost cultivators besieged you, and what are their cultivation levels?" Devil Monarch Nightfrost glanced at Tianxian and said, "More than 20 people, including 2 late-stage nascent soul ghost cultivators." His face was expressionless, but his pale blue face seemed to have a glimmer of light. Mo Tienga frowned. In that case, didn't they dispatch 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators? Hearing this number, Jing Xingji also frowned. What's the origin of this ghost city? Why are there so many ghost cultivators hiding here? 40 nascent soul cultivators was a shocking number in Yunzhong. There were only about 100 nascent soul cultivators in the entire Yunzhong. This ghost city had mobilized 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators just to kill them. How many nascent soul ghost cultivators were there in total? At least half of them, right? Don't tell me your celestial pole doesn't know there's a ghost city here? Tianxian said. His tone was full of doubt and contempt, which made Mo Tienga feel very unhappy. Although Mo Tienga didn't like his tone, she still said calmly, the celestial pole is different from Yunzhong. Almost all the cultivators in the celestial pole are concentrated in Kunwu. There are neither spiritual lands nor spiritual objects in the westernmost desert, so naturally, no cultivators set foot there. Xianxia snorted and didn't say anything else. She went on to say, 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators, and there might be other ghost cultivators in the ghost city. If they block the exit, we only have 8 people. We can't fight them at all. Fellow Daoist Qin is right. Devil Monarch Knight Frost glanced at Master Song Feng again. In this case, we can only be trapped here if we go our own way. She smiled. Fellow Daoist Knight Frost, you mean, naturally, we'll leave together. The black cloud finally moved, and Master Song Feng's voice came from inside. Old witch, you don't need to test me. I certainly don't want to be trapped here. Devil Monarch Knight Frost raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, I'm not talking to you. Master Song Feng snorted. Since that's the case, don't blame me for not helping. Devil Monarch Knight Frost didn't care at all. If he didn't help, they couldn't get out. It would be strange if he didn't help. She glanced at Master Song Feng and said, we can't defeat the 40 ghost cultivators in the ghost city, let alone all the ghost cultivators in the ghost city. How can we get out? Devil Monarch Knight Frost said, where there's a will, there's a way. Whether we can get out or not is still uncertain. She exchanged glances with Emotienga and said, fellow Daoist, do you have an idea? Devil Monarch Knight Frost turned to look at Hong Xiao. This maid of mine has a strange secret technique. She can go and explore. Emotienga was stunned and asked, you can enter the ghost city? After receiving Devil Monarch Knight Frost's signal, Hong Xiao said, yes, I have a secret technique that allows my primordial spirit to leave its body and sneak into the ghost city. Primordial spirit leaving its body? Emotienga and the others were astonished. Even Ye Wuxiang, who was regulating her breath and healing her injuries, opened her eyes. 4 nascent soul cultivators like them, their primordial spirits already possessed power, but their primordial spirits were still far from being able to leave their bodies. Even if they reached the deification realm, their primordial spirits still couldn't leave their bodies. This kind of secret technique was unheard of. Emotienga was vigilant. This Hong Zhao's strength was average, but she had this kind of secret technique, so she couldn't be underestimated. Chapter 556. As expected, Hong Zhao's primordial spirit left her body under the protection of Demon Monarch Knight Frost and Xianxia. It would probably take several days for her to wake up. Emotienga looked at the 3 of them thoughtfully. Among the 4 of them, Nye Wuxiang's injuries weren't light, and she consumed a lot of vermilion bird's flames to break the 10,000 ghosts' soul-devouring formation. One of them was healing, and the other was adjusting his breath. Jing Xingji and Emotienga only consumed some spiritual aura, so they recovered quickly. Seeing her like this, Jing Xingji came over and asked, what are you looking at? Emotienga rubbed her chin and said, why do I feel like there's something strange about that master and disciple? Jing Xingji followed her gaze. Demon Monarch Knight Frost and Xianxia were talking about something, but they couldn't hear it because of the soundproof barrier. However, both of them noticed the subtle feeling in their expressions. Jing Xingji chuckled. Interesting. Interesting. What's interesting? Emotienga ignored his frivolous tone. I've heard that master and disciple eventually became husband and wife. Cultivators like us never cared about these so-called seniority. However, I've never seen a nascent soul female cultivator have anything to do with her disciple, let alone a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. Cultivation talent had nothing to do with gender, but because men were superior to women in the secular world, women had fewer chances to become cultivators than men, so there were fewer female cultivators than male cultivators. Because most women weren't good at fights of magical powers, there were fewer female cultivators in the end than male cultivators. Therefore, every female cultivator who became a nascent soul cultivator was an elite among elites. Take Hong Xiao for example. She wasn't good enough for them, but she was stronger than most ordinary nascent soul cultivators. Therefore, Female cultivators who cultivated to the nascent soul realm rarely chose a man with a lower cultivation level as their partner because of their excellence, unless they became Dao companions when they were young. There was an example of this in the celestial pole. The Luan Feng immortal couple from the Biyun sect became Dao companions when they were in the foundation building realm. Now, both of them were in the middle stage of the nascent soul realm, but Ding Wan's cultivation level was higher than Feng Zhao's. But this master and disciple pair obviously couldn't be. They had been to Yunzhong, and new demon monarch Night Frost had become a late-stage nascent soul cultivator several hundred years ago, and Tianxian was her disciple. As he spoke excitedly, Jing Xingji waved his hand and created a soundproof barrier. He chuckled and said, "Do you recognize it?" "Recognize what?" Mo Tiange was bewildered. Jing Xingji glanced over and said, "We've met that Tianxian before." Mo Tiange was dumbfounded. Although they'd known each other for more than 100 years, she and Jing Xingji had only traveled together a few times. The first time was on Demonic Mountain, the second time was to save Tangshen, followed by Yunzhong, where he changed his name to Jianxin twice, and now. She recalled the things that they had experienced together, and a familiar figure slowly emerged from the depths of her memory. It's him. Her experience in the maze cave left a deep impression on Mo Tiange. That was the first time she faced a nascent soul cultivator and encountered a crisis where she almost died. Afterward, when she was recuperating, she missed the sinking of the South Pole Island. It was also because of that experience that she and Nie Wuxiang could have such a heart-to-heart relationship. However, she didn't see the scene of Tianxian hiding behind and taking advantage of the situation, so she didn't have a deep impression of him as Jing Xingji did. After thinking for a while, she finally remembered. As she recalled this matter, Mo Tiange looked pensive. In that case, his cultivation level was still in the core formation realm 100 years ago. Even if he just formed his nascent soul, this kind of cultivation speed is absolutely top-notch. Besides, his divine abilities are mysterious. Have you fought with him? Mo Tiange asked. Just one move, Jing Xingji said. That sword move of his was beyond Tianxian's expectations, and Tianxian's strength was also beyond his expectations. She said he was very strong, and Jing Xingji also said he wasn't weak. It seemed that this Tianxian was definitely not a nobody following behind Demon Monarch Night Frost. Demon Monarch Night Frost's group wasn't simple. As the two of them spoke, she stopped adjusting his breath and opened his eyes. Seeing him staring at him, Jing Xingji hastily stepped back. "I didn't do anything." She ignored him and said to Mo Tiange, "Let's go out for a while." Mo Tiange didn't understand. She didn't explain. He dusted off his sleeves and stood up. Seeing this, Mo Tiange followed him. As soon as he moved, the two people on Demon Monarch Night Frost's side looked at him. Master Song Feng was in the dark clouds, so Mo Tiange didn't know whether he was also paying attention to this side or not. She glanced at them and said faintly, "Let's go outside." He didn't explain much. Demon Monarch Night Frost and Tianxian saw that it was the two of them. Jing Xingji and Nie Wuxiang didn't follow them, and Qi's natural attitude made them think the couple wanted to be alone for a while, so they saluted from a distance and didn't say anything. Stepping out of the stone gate, the two of them walked silently until they reached White Tiger Hall. Seeing that she stopped, Mo Tiange asked, "Senior Martial Brother, do you have something to say?" She nodded, cast a soundproof barrier, and asked, "Do you think Demon Monarch Night Frost's words are reliable?" The four of them hadn't discussed this matter. In any case, they were trapped here and couldn't move. If Demon Monarch Night Frost had a way, they'd just let them do it. Mo Tiange said, "I'm just curious. They put in so much effort just for one thing? Is it a treasure like the Vermilion Bird Bough? Something that could make a late-stage nascent soul cultivator rush here from thousands of miles away was certainly not an ordinary thing. None of the things they got from the storehouse could meet such a condition, unless it was the whole storehouse, but they clearly said they only needed one thing. Maybe, she said, I'm guessing it might be related to the deification realm." Mo Tiange looked at him. She couldn't help but smile when he saw her sparkling eyes. He stroked her head and said, If it's related to the deification realm, we have to get involved. Master is already in the late stage. Although they had deification pills, they hadn't heard of some of the materials needed for this miraculous pill, and they didn't know where to get them. Lord Daoist Jinghe advanced to the late stage not long ago, but he still had 500 or 600 years left in his life. If he couldn't break through by then, Immortal planned to offer her longevity pills. With a lifespan of 1,000 years, it was very possible for him to advance to the deification realm. Even if Lord Daoist Jinghe couldn't use it, they would have to face the deification realm sooner or later. With their lifespan and cultivation speed, their chances of reaching the peak stage of the nascent soul realm were very high. She pondered for a while, then removed the soundproof cover. He said, "Let's go out and take a look." The two of them gradually walked away. The white tiger's breath became fainter and the ghost aura became denser and denser. How could the ghost aura left by 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators be ordinary? Even if they all returned to Ghost City, this ghost aura wouldn't disperse for a while. When the two of them walked to the damaged stone wall, they saw a faint shadow. That powerful momentum undoubtedly belonged to nascent soul ghost cultivators. Upon seeing them, the nascent soul ghost cultivators became restless, but they didn't dare to come closer. They naturally didn't think these ghost cultivators were afraid of them. Ghost cultivators were afraid of the white tiger's breath. The white tiger's breath here came from a real divine beast, the white tiger. Its power wasn't something the vermilion bird's flame she had subdued could compare to. They hid here for a whole day, but these nascent soul ghost cultivators didn't dare to enter, which showed its power. The two of them retreated a little. She took out a talisman from his Jianquan ring and drew some talismans in the air. He then said something to the talisman and forced a drop of his blood essence to melt into the talisman. Immortal looked at the talisman and said, "You wanted to come out because of this, right?" She nodded with a smile. With a flick of his finger, the talisman turned into a wisp of smoke and flew out of the exit. The ghost cultivators who were waiting were still ignorant. Seeing that these ghost cultivators didn't dare to approach the sacrificial temple, they thought there should be no trouble in the near future, so the two of them turned back. This place was quite far from Xianxia School, and the current situation was complicated. Ordinary sound-transmitting talismans couldn't escape these ghost cultivators' eyes and ears. A sound-transmitting talisman with sealed divine senses couldn't describe the situation here in detail. If Lord Daoist Jinghe found out they crushed the sound-transmitting talisman and called his two senior martial brothers and sisters to come, it would be very bad. Therefore, she used his blood essence just to send a message. He wanted to pass on the specific information about this place so that Lord Daoist Jinghe could lead people to rescue them. 40 nascent soul ghost cultivators and an unknown ghost city. This matter must be reported to the Immortal Alliance, who would come forward and send a group of nascent soul cultivators. There was a secret storehouse here, and with the addition of the White Tiger Sacrificial Temple, the Immortal Alliance wouldn't be tempted. Although they were trapped here, as long as they sent a message, they would be in an invincible position, so she never worried and let Demon Monarch Night Frost and the others do whatever they wanted. After thinking about it, Immortal couldn't help but laugh. When a bunch of nascent soul cultivators from the Immortal Alliance come, I wonder what Master Song Feng will think. She walked leisurely with his hands clasped behind his back and said with a smile, "I learned this talisman technique recently from the Ice Palace in the Returning Ruined Sea. I think Master Song Feng doesn't know this talisman technique exists in this world." He paused for a moment and said, "Master has already advanced to the late stage of the nascent soul realm. With us here, Master Song Feng will suffer a lot this time. However, he's been in the late stage of the nascent soul realm for hundreds of years. His divine power is powerful, so he probably won't be able to stay." Immortal also understood that nascent soul cultivators weren't easy to kill, especially cultivators in the late stage of the nascent soul realm. Until now, there had never been a precedent of them being killed by others. They could be seriously injured or abandon their bodies, but as long as their nascent souls existed, they could escape. To kill a great cultivator in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, one not only needed an absolute advantage but also a lot of luck. Thinking up to this point, she sighed inwardly. In that case, before Master Song Feng passed away, Nie Wuxiang had to avoid him. She actually hoped that Nie Wuxiang could catch up and kill Master Song Feng, but the possibility was too low. When Master Song Feng was in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, Nie Wuxiang hadn't been born yet. In the few hundred years he had left, it would be too difficult for Nie Wuxiang to reach his current realm. "Let me out." Fei Fei's impatient voice rang in her ears. "Did you hear me?" Mo Tiange had no choice but to open the spiritual beast bag, and Fei Fei immediately scuttled out. "Isn't it good for you to cultivate in the spiritual beast bag?" Fei Fei sniffed and was overjoyed. "Hey, you want me to return empty-handed after entering the White Tiger sacrificial temple?" Mo Tiange shook her head and said, "Don't be delusional. Even we can't get close to that White Tiger. At most, you can absorb some of its breath." Fei Fei jumped onto her shoulder and said proudly, "That's you guys, not me." Mo Tiange was surprised. "You have a way?" Fei Fei shook its head and said proudly, "Have you forgotten my talent?" Chapter 557. Fei Fei could coexist peacefully with all demonic beasts and could make people clear-minded, which happened to be the nemesis of White Tiger's breath. Moreover, Fei Fei belonged to the metal element, which was compatible with White Tiger's breath. Mo Tiange said curiously, "What a coincidence! Is this White Tiger's fate prepared for you?" Fei Fei proudly raised its head, but Mo Tiange slapped it down. "You're so lazy. Walk by yourself." Fei Fei whimpered and wanted to protest, but seeing that Mo Tiange ignored it and walked away, it could only obediently put away its tail and follow them. Mo Tiange shook her head as she walked. "I'm afraid Jing Xingji will be disappointed." If Fei Fei was right, this White Tiger's fated chance would really belong to it. Qin Shi smiled and said, "He can be said to be unlucky, but in fact, he also had countless fated chances to reach this step. He can be said to be lucky, but he always misses big fated chances. For example, the Yang spiritual bead and the vermilion bird bow. However, fated chances couldn't be helped by others. If it didn't belong to Jing Xingji, they couldn't do anything. The two people and the beast soon returned. Jing Xingji saw that they didn't look the same, so he was suspicious for a while before he continued to concentrate on cultivating. He wasn't injured, so what he was doing now was absorbing White Tiger's breath. Every time Mo Tiange stopped cultivating, she would see him sitting cross-legged on the ground with his still water sword floating in front of him. From time to time, spots of light flashed on the sword. It was the White Tiger's breath being absorbed into the sword and transforming its sword aura. Qin Shi once told her about Jing Xingji. Jing Xingji's sword was the nameless ancient sword he obtained together with him. At that time, Jing Xingji was still the outstanding disciple of venerable swordsman Zhongguang of Gujin sect. He was proud of his life and didn't want to be like other sword cultivators who casually refined a natal flying sword and then slowly improved it. Jing Xingji was overjoyed when he obtained this nameless ancient sword, so he refined it into his natal flying sword. The sword art he obtained with this sword was called the secular sword art. It had a total of 3 killing moves, named gain and loss, sorrow and joy, and withering and flourishing. The power of these 3 moves was earth-shattering. Of course, the so-called earth-shattering was after the great accomplishment. The great accomplishment in ancient times was not the nascent soul of today. Even if Jing Xingji had formed the nascent soul, he could only be called a minor accomplishment. Seeing how focused Jing Xingji was on absorbing the White Tiger's breath, Mo Tiange prayed in her heart. She hoped seeing the White Tiger this time would also bring him some fated chances instead of watching helplessly as another great fated chance slipped away. As for herself, she didn't have any metal-attributed techniques. It would be best if she had some, but if she didn't, she wouldn't force it. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Hong Xiao, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Demon Monarch Night Frost and Sky Xian hurried forward. Mo Tiange and the other 3 also stopped cultivating and stared at them. "City Lord, speak slowly." Night Frost Demon Monarch pressed down on her shoulder. Hong Xiao stabilized her breathing and slowly said, I pretended to be a remnant soul and floated into Ghost City. This Ghost City was extremely large. According to Hong Xiao, it was several times larger than the largest city in Yunzhong. In the Ghost City, there were unconscious remnant souls, spirit ghosts who only retained their memories, and nascent soul ghost cultivators who had formed ghost infants. There was a rumor in the secular world that in the human world, there was an unknown ghost city called Fengdu. After people died, their souls would be captured and brought to Fengdu to be judged by a ghost emperor before they would be reincarnated. For cultivators like them, this was merely a legend. They traveled all over the world, but they'd never seen a ghost city. It was already pretty good if they could meet a few souls whose memories hadn't been erased. This ghost city, on the other hand, gathered many kinds of ghosts. It was very similar to the legendary ghost city, Fengdu. The highest ruler of the ghost city was called the Ghost Venerable. No one could accurately tell what his cultivation level was. Under the Ghost Venerable, there were 68 nascent soul ghost emperors who ruled the ghost city. There were even hundreds of millions of ghosts in the ghost city. The news that Hong Xiao brought back was sensational. When she finished speaking, the 8 people present were all silent. She was even more certain that his decision was correct. If he didn't inform the Immortal Alliance about such a ghost city, how could they escape? At the same time, the atmosphere in White Tiger's sacrificial temple became unstable. Demon Monarch Night Frost's group no longer brought up the matter of cooperation. Mo Tianga's group of 4 also remained silent. Master Song Feng didn't move from beginning to end. Half a month later, Hong Zhao's injuries were healed, and Demon Monarch Night Frost's group began to move. Fellow Daoists. Before leaving, Demon Monarch Night Frost came to them. The 4 people stood up to greet him. Demon Monarch Night Frost's expression was cold, but her words were polite. The 3 of us are determined to fight our way out of the encirclement. Are you willing to come with us? She said without hesitation, there are so many ghost cultivators outside. The 4 of us cherish our lives, so we won't go with you. Demon Monarch Night Frost nodded. She knew they wouldn't attack together, so she just mentioned it casually. Fellow Daoist Night Frost, Jing Xingji said with a smile, there are so many nascent soul ghost cultivators outside. Isn't it too risky for the 3 of you to go out like this? Demon Monarch Night Frost paused. A ripple appeared on her frosty face, but she immediately calmed down. The 3 of us are devil cultivators. The longer we stay here, the more our cultivation levels will be consumed. It's better to fight while our strength hasn't been damaged yet. After saying that, she didn't give them a chance to ask again. Goodbye. After watching Demon Monarch Night Frost leave with Tian Xian and Hong Xiao, the 4 of them sat down again. She flicked his finger, casting a soundproof barrier. What do you want to say? What did they get from the ghost city? Jing Xingji asked, tapping the hilt of his sword. This was an affirmative statement, not a question. Otherwise, they wouldn't have left the sacrificial temple so decisively. If they stayed here, Demon Monarch Night Frost only needed to use some devil aura to protect the 2 people from being burned by White Tiger's breath. If they left, they would die. She looked at Nye Wuxiang, then looked at Jing Xingji. He said, do you want to do something? Of these 2 people, one was lost in thought, and the other's eyes were darting around. It seemed neither of them wanted to end things like this. Jing Xingji chuckled when he heard what she said. He patted Qi's shoulder and said, are you willing? Maybe you can really get some treasure from them and leave. She glanced at the white tiger in the middle. So you're giving up? Jing Xingji took his hand back and sighed. I don't want to give up either way, but I have to make a choice. Did he expect him to obtain White Tiger's inheritance, then go on a killing spree and leave confidently? He wasn't a greenhorn who daydreamed all day and wanted to get fated chances. He had to save his life first. Ignore them, she said. I said I'll call for reinforcements. We'll just wait here. He then stared at Jing Xingji. Mo Tiange didn't need to say anything, and he didn't need to care about Nye Wuxiang. His words were a warning to Jing Xingji not to act recklessly. Jing Xingji still tried to defend himself. Can your summoning talisman get out? Even if it can, how can you explain the situation here? You don't need to worry about that. I have a way, she said faintly, then closed his eyes and meditated without saying anything else. He lost a drop of blood essence, and it would take him a lot of effort to recover. Seeing that Imo was also staring at him, Jing Xingji helplessly spread his hands and continued to cultivate. If they didn't want to leave, then so be it. In any case, he wasn't Master Song Feng and had no enmity with the people of the Immortal Alliance, so he wasn't afraid they would kill him first. The four people fell silent again. Imo Tiange said to Fei Fei, "Can you really take White Tiger away?" Fei Fei wagged its tail and raised its head. Just wait and see. After Demon Monarch Night Frost left, it was very quiet outside. If they used force to break out of the encirclement, it was impossible for there to be no movement at all. It seemed their guess was right. Hong Xiao obtained some treasure from Ghost City. However, Imo Tiange felt strange. Why did Master Song Feng just stand by and watch like them? They did it because they had a backup plan, but what about Master Song Feng? Even if he safely waited until the people of the Immortal Alliance broke into Ghost City, how could he guarantee his own safety? For him, the people of the Immortal Alliance were more dangerous than those ghost cultivators. As she thought about this, there seemed to be a commotion outside. She turned around and saw the other three people open their eyes. What's going on? Imo Tiange asked in a low voice. After a while, he said, "Someone's coming." Could it be the people of the Immortal Alliance? The four people were a bit nervous. If it was the people of the Immortal Alliance, they would be saved. But soon, the four people were disappointed. Among the three people, the leader was in the late nascent soul realm and was a devil cultivator. Obviously, Demon Monarch Night Frost's group had returned. Demon Monarch Night Frost's group came back in a very sorry state. Hong Zhao's tube skirt was almost covered in blood, and there was a shocking black mark on her white waist. Xianxia looked a bit better. His fake hand, which had been hidden in his sleeve, also had a black mark. Demon Monarch Night Frost's face was pale. He had consumed a lot of devil aura. As soon as they came in, Demon Monarch Night Frost gave them and Master Song Feng a warning look and ordered Xianxia, "Take out the devil breath pill." Then she waved the purple satin to isolate the white tiger's breath and put Hong Xiao inside. When she finished, Xianxia still didn't move. Demon Monarch Night Frost turned her head and looked at him. "What?" Xianxia said faintly, "Shuang, even if we can save her, how can we take her out?" Demon Monarch Night Frost was stunned. She slowly stood up and stared at him. "You want me to give up on Hong Xiao?" Xianxia looked away and said, "We don't have any strength left." Demon Monarch Night Frost didn't say anything. She just stared at Xianxia in silence. It wasn't until Hong Xiao coughed up blood that her attention was pulled back. "Castellan?" Hong Xiao looked up with a sad but firm expression. "You guys should go. My injuries can't be healed." "Don't say that." Demon Monarch Night Frost's expression immediately became firm. She looked at Xianxia and said, "Devil breath pill." Xianxia didn't move. Demon Monarch Night Frost said again, "Devil breath pill." Her voice was still calm, but it became more and more determined each time. Xianxia finally sighed, took out a pill bottle, and tossed it over. Demon Monarch Night Frost caught it and was about to take out the pill when the sky above her suddenly darkened. A powerful force enveloped her. She waved her hand, and an icy devil aura rose from her sleeve to resist that force. She was about to turn her head when she heard Hong Xiao shout, "Castellan," and her whole body went numb. Hong Xiao looked behind her in horror, her lips trembling. "Young master." Chapter 558. Above Night Frost Demon Monarch's head was an upside-down cup-shaped Dharma treasure. It emitted a black light that enveloped her. Under the black light, Night Frost Demon Lord was unable to move. The hand holding the pill bottle was tilted. Hong Xiao dazedly looked at the two people in front of her and suddenly shouted with all her might, "Gongzi, what are you doing?" Sky Xian's gaze was heavy. He didn't even look at Hong Xiao. He stretched out his silver fake hand and slapped Night Frost Demon Monarch's back several times. Unable to move, Night Frost Demon Lord could only endure it. After the final palm strike, the demonic aura in her body choked, And her cultivation was sealed just like that. Tienga's group of 4 was dumbstruck as they watched this scene unfold. They previously thought of all kinds of possibilities, but they never expected there would be such a change. What is he doing? Tienga asked in a low voice. Being in the sacrificial temple, the breath of the white tiger had a suppressive effect on the devil chi. Moreover, there were ghost cultivators surrounding him like an iron bucket. Even if he had extraordinary magical powers, how would he be able to break through? Just now, the 3 of them had traveled together and returned with serious injuries. Under such circumstances, he still attacked Demon Lord Nightfrost. Did he really want to be trapped here forever? Moreover, they were not only master and disciple, but also lovers. Xianxia shook his head and didn't answer. Why? Fiend Lord Nightfrost asked softly after a while. She tried to control her emotions, but her voice still trembled. Because I hate you. Tianxian said word by word. Many emotions flashed across his face. One moment he was in love, the next moment he was angry, the next moment he was lost, the next moment he was sad. Hate me? Demon Lord Nightfrost repeated with a blank expression. Young master. Hong Xiao shouted sternly, when has the city lord wronged you? Without a city lord, why are you here with your cultivation? Tianxian stared at Hong Xiao and sneered. That's right, she didn't let me down, but so what? What does it have to do with me hating her? Hong Xiao was stunned. She didn't understand. Since he didn't apologize, why did he hate her? She had a pure mind. Although she was a maid, she had never suffered the slightest bit, so she did not know the complexity of people's hearts. I hate you. Tianxian looked indifferent. Why did you bring me back? I hate you. Why are you with me? I hate you. Why can't you forget Yisha? When he said the last sentence, his eyes were filled with rage and intense hatred. Yisha? Tienga's curiosity was piqued when she heard this name. What did Yisha have to do with Yishuang? Could it be? Yisha, Nightfrost Fiend Lord said. Yisha is you. Why must you? I'm not Yisha. Tianxian was furious. His pale blue face was undulating. After taking a deep breath, he said calmly, I have long lost the memory of my previous life. What does Yisha have to do with me? He sneered, you think I'm Yisha, but have you ever thought that I don't want to be Yisha? Night Frost Demon Monarch closed his eyes and shook his head. I didn't expect. Of course you wouldn't expect it. Tianxian looked at her coldly. This devil cultivator of the late Yuan dynasty, one of the 3 devil monarchs in Yunzhong, looked so weak from the back. You found me on your own accord, accepted me as your disciple, and treated me as Yisha. Do you think I would be grateful to you? In that case, your feelings are all fake. No. Tianxian stared at her back. Tenderness flashed across his eyes. Everything I said to you was true. It has always been true. But you only have Yisha in your heart. You only treat me as Yisha. His voice was so sad, as if the betrayer was Nightfrost Demon Monarch and not him. Just because of this? Nightfrost Demon Monarch couldn't help but laugh. Just because of this, you want to kill me? Tianxian didn't answer. He said indifferently, you are one of the 3 devil monarchs. You control Night Owl City. You are one of the top cultivators in Yunzhong. You are too amazing. You treat me as Yisha and keep me by your side. I can only be Yisha and be your pet. What do the people in the City Lord Manor think of me? What do the cultivators in Yunzhong think of me? They are very respectful in front of me, but they whisper behind my back. Just like what Hong Xiao said, without you, how can I achieve my cultivation? That's what everyone thinks. They treat me as your male pet. So what? His gaze landed on the void. Night Frost Demon Monarch said softly, I know I'm not. You know I'm not. Isn't that enough? It's not you. Of course you don't know how painful this feeling is. Tianxian shouted. Night Frost Demon Monarch shut his mouth tightly and didn't say a word. I love you, he said. His pale blue face was warm, but it slowly turned cold. But I'm not Yisha. I can't stand you thinking of Yisha when you look at me. He continued, from the beginning to the end, the person you love is only Yisha. Yisha is dead. You tried your best to find his reincarnation. You can't stand Yisha leaving you. After a few hundred years, you found me and brought me back to Night Owl City. You worked hard for the mutant blood in my body. Whatever Yisha likes, you make me do it. Whatever Yisha hates, you never let me see. But I don't have the memories of my previous life. I might not like what he likes, and I might not hate what he hates. I'm completely different from Yisha, but you ignore me. I want you to really look at me, not Yisha, but me. After a long silence, Night Frost Demon Monarch finally said, "When did you start to want to kill me?" Xianxia showed a bitter smile. Before this, I couldn't make up my mind. Just now, as luck would have it, Night Frost Demon Monarch said sadly, "You wanted to kill me for a long time. Otherwise, you would have let me know you have this kind of magic weapon." After a moment of silence, Xianxia said, "Maybe. Do you have anything else to say?" The truth was in front of him, but Night Frost Demon Monarch calmed down. Xianxia's expression was complicated. In the end, he shook his head. "Then let's do it," Night Frost Demon Monarch said faintly. "You'll be more confident if you go alone." Xianxia clenched his teeth and slowly raised his silver fake hand. Asterisk asterisk asterisk, that's strange. He killed Night Frost Demon Monarch. Isn't he afraid of being killed by us alone? Jing Xingji said. She said, "I fought him before. He has a strange divine ability. His body can turn into invisible devil aura, so he's not afraid of being hurt." Nie Wushang's eyes brightened. "There's actually such a divine ability? Yes, he can't beat me, but I also can't hurt him." Seeing Xianxia slowly raising his hand, Hong Xiao suddenly pounced on him. The double-edged dagger in her hand spun quickly and ruthlessly stabbed at Xianxia. Xianxia's eyes turned cold. Hong Xiao had just jumped when he waved his fake hand and ruthlessly slapped her head, smashing her nascent soul. Mo Tiange felt a chill in her heart. This Xianxia seemed to like this kind of method very much. Huiziki and Zhong Xi's corpses were also crushed like this. Even their nascent souls were crushed without leaving anything behind. Redsilk. Demon Lord Night Frost was alarmed when he saw this scene. Hong Xiao screamed. The light in her eyes disappeared, and she fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Looking at Hong Xiao's bleeding corpse, Night Frost Demon Monarch was stunned. It took her a long time to regain her composure. Xianxia said indifferently, "I didn't expect she'd be willing to risk her life for you. I underestimated her." Night Frost Demon Monarch smiled sadly. "It turns out I'm not a failure after all. Someone's willing to die for me." She then closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She suddenly threw the pill bottle in her hand and made a hand seal. A devil aura appeared behind her and shook Xianxia away. Xianxia was shaken and took several steps back. He stared at her in shock. Night Frost Demon Monarch slowly turned around and stared at him fixedly. "You weren't immobilized?" Night Frost Demon Monarch stretched out her hand, and the goblet magic weapon fell into her hand. She looked at it and sighed. "The illusory immobilization goblet. It turns out it fell into your hands, but you never told me." Then she looked at him and said faintly, "You underestimate late nascent realm cultivators. This goblet is indeed a rare treasure, but it's still not enough to immobilize a late nascent realm cultivator." Xianxia was silent for a while and asked, "Are you going to kill me?" Night Frost Demon Monarch didn't answer. She said, "You said I ignored your wish, but why didn't you tell me you weren't willing? Was it because I didn't want to listen, or was it because you didn't dare to tell me?" Xianxia didn't answer. Night Frost Demon Monarch continued, "That's right. I've always thought of you as Yisha because you're indeed Yisha's reincarnation. If you didn't want to be Yisha, you could have told me directly, but you never did." She let out a long sigh, and sadness finally appeared in her eyes. "I finally know that you're not Yisha. Yisha never felt inferior. He's magnanimous and only asks for himself. He doesn't care about other people's rumors." He wanted to say that he didn't feel inferior, but he couldn't say it under Night Frost Demon Monarch's clear gaze. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "I made you do something you don't like." Back then, I made a promise with Yisha. If one of us died first, we'd find the other's reincarnation. We'd be together forever. She smiled sadly and tears welled up in her eyes. I did as I promised. I thought we'd fulfill our vow and be together forever. Only now do I realize that I was wrong. Our vow was like a castle in the air. It could never be fulfilled. Tianxian was silent. This was something he didn't know. I found you and saw that you still loved me, so I thought it could be done. But I didn't know that after you reincarnated and forgot the memories of your previous life, you'd become someone else. Since you're not Yisha, how can I ask you to continue the vow from your previous life? He wanted to say that he really wasn't Yisha, but he felt a dull pain in his heart. Was he really not him in his previous life? Night Frost Demon Monarch took a deep breath and said, "Let's end our vow. From now on you're you and I'm me." The purple ribbon rose and turned into a purple light, stabbing into Tianxian's head like lightning. Tianxian's eyes widened in shock as he stared at her. Hong Xiao followed me for hundreds of years, and she died for me. I can't not avenge her. Looking at his unwilling eyes, a tear rolled down her cheek. She said softly, "You won't meet me in your next life." Chapter 559. In just a quarter of an hour, Demon Monarch Night Frost lost the two people closest to her. One died for her, and the other was killed by her. The one who died for her was just a maid, but the one she killed was the lover of her two lives. Nothing was more impermanent than this. Emotienga couldn't help but wonder what she would do if she was in his shoes. Would she pursue the next life and be together forever? Or would it end cleanly in this world? Qin, she said as if he understood something, so that's his weakness. Emotienga's sigh was strangled to death just like that. She turned around and glared at him. Qin, she was at a loss. What's wrong? Nie Wuxiang had another realization. So there really are past lives and present lives. Everyone knew people had souls, but reincarnation was the law of heaven and earth. It wasn't something they could touch. Therefore, past lives and present lives were only theories. No one had seen it with their own eyes. From what Demon Monarch Night Frost and Tianxian said, not only did they confirm there were past lives and present lives, but they also found the reincarnated people. After a while, Demon Monarch Night Frost regained her calm. She put away Tianxian's corpse and searched Hong Zhao's body. Soon she had something in her hand. Emotienga saw the gray light ball in Demon Monarch Night Frost's hand. A black shadow flashed in front of her eyes, and she threw herself at him. Demon Monarch Night Frost hurriedly raised her purple satin, but she only had time to protect herself before the gray light ball in her hand was snatched away. Master Song Feng. Emotienga suddenly stood up. In an instant, the fight between the two late nascent soul cultivators was over. Master Song Feng turned into a black cloud and quickly escaped with the gray light ball, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. Demon Monarch Night Frost stood where she was and didn't chase after him. Master Song Feng moved so fast that Emotienga and the other three couldn't react at all. Demon Monarch Night Frost only had time to protect herself. She looked at her empty palm, smiled bitterly, and put away Hong Zhao's corpse. After doing all this, Demon Monarch Night Frost turned around and walked towards them. "Fellow Daoists, do you have a way out?" Qin, she looked at her calmly. "How can fellow Daoist Night Frost be so sure?" Demon Monarch Night Frost said faintly, "I've only met you once, but I've heard a lot about you. Since you're so calm, you must have a plan." Qin, she smiled and admitted frankly, "Yes." "Then, can you take me out with you?" "Of course, I'll pay you." "Fellow Daoist Yishuang," Jing Xingji interrupted. "Your disciple has just perished, and you're already thinking of a way to get out?" This sentence was simply meant to be sarcastic. They had no enmity before, so he really shouldn't have said this. Demon Daoist Demon Monarch Knight turned to look at him. Knight Demon Frost of the Demon Frost Monarch. Demon Monarch Night Frost wasn't angry, but he also didn't explain. He only said faintly, "Fellow Daoist, you're not the person involved, so you naturally won't understand." He then looked at Qin Shi and asked, "May I?" Daoist Demon Monarch of Frost Monarch Qin, what price you are willing to pay? Doff of time. Demon Monarch Knight. Demon Qin of Qin asked Qin. Qin of demon, demon, of demon, took of. Qin she took it but said, this thing doesn't seem to be able to hold fellow Daoist. The Night Frost Demon Monarch smiled bitterly. It's obviously less effective against late nascent cultivators. However, it was not to the extent that it was completely ineffective. My disciple is a devil cultivator, and his blood and qi are not pure, so he can't bring out the effect of this cup. You are Dao cultivators. If you refine it properly, it will be of some use even against late nascent soul cultivators. Qin Shi released his divine sense to explore the cup. He then nodded and said, it's indeed a treasure. This isn't the only thing, right? Seeing that Qin Shi had the intention to agree, Jing Xingji hurriedly said, there are 4 of us. Night Frost Devil Monarch glanced at him, then took out a book from his robe and tossed it to him. I also obtained this sword art from returning Ruin Sea. It's useless to me, so I'll give it to fellow Daoist. He then turned to Nie Wuxiang and said, as for this fellow Daoist, I can teach you the invisibility transformation technique. Nie Wuxiang's eyes brightened. Fellow Daoist, are you talking about the divine ability to transform into devil aura and be unafraid of harm? It's not that I'm unafraid of harm, but I have to find the right weak point. In addition, I have to remind fellow Daoist that not everyone can practice this technique. Although my aptitude and cultivation level both surpass Tianxuan's, I know nothing about this technique. Nie Wuxiang nodded. I understand. Night Frost Devil Monarch no longer said anything. He took out a jade slip from his Qingkuan bag and tossed it to Nie Wuxiang. As for fellow Daoist Mo. Night Frost Devil Monarch looked at Fei Fei, who was curled up in the corner and absorbed the white tiger's breath, and said, I have something that must be very useful to fellow Daoist. He then took out a bracelet and handed it to Mo Tiange. This thing is called a spiritual beast bracelet, and it can store spiritual beasts. Unlike a spiritual beast bag, this thing can store up to 10 spiritual beasts. Moreover, cultivating inside a spiritual beast bracelet is much better than cultivating inside a spiritual beast bag. Mo Tiange took the bracelet and released her divine sense. Fellow Daoist, you're right. The 4 of them each got an item, and all of them were extraordinary. As experienced late nascent soul cultivators, they were indeed extraordinary. The 4 of them looked at each other, all very satisfied. Qin Shi said, that being the case, I'll be frank with fellow Daoist. Before long, someone will come to rescue you. At that time, fellow Daoist can leave with us. Hearing that, Night Frost Devil Monarch frowned slightly. There are so many ghost cultivators here. How are we going to rescue them? Seeing that Qin Shi was very confident, she hesitated for a moment then nodded. All right, I believe you. After she said that, she simply picked a corner that wasn't too far away and sat down. Although Night Frost Devil Monarch was sitting cross-legged, her eyes were wide open, staring straight ahead. Mo Tiange glanced at Jing Xingji and said through voice transmission, you don't like her? Jing Xingji smiled carelessly and replied through voice transmission, how could I? How could you talk to her like that? Mo Tiange wasn't polite at all. If it were me, I'd slap you to death. Jing Xingji curled his lips and said, if Qin Shoujing died, nonsense. Before he could finish, Mo Tiange glared at him. If you say one more word, I'll slap you to death right now. Fine, I just think she's very fake. Since they were lovers of 2 lives, why didn't she hesitate when she killed him? She still had to find his reincarnation. Mo Tiange understood a little. Jing Xingji seemed to be heartless, but he was actually very sentimental, so he felt unhappy when he saw Night Frost Devil Monarch kill Tian Xian without hesitation. You don't understand. Mo Tiange looked at Night Frost Devil Monarch and sighed. If it were me, I might make the same choice as her. But because he's already fallen into a demonic barrier. Even if he's freed, this life is over. It's better to end it quickly and start the next life. Mo Tiange smiled and said, I think she'll still look for Yisha's reincarnation, but she'll definitely not recognize him. Maybe she'll just accept him as her disciple, or maybe she won't even see him and just protect him for the rest of his life. Jing Xingji's expression slowly softened. I really can't understand a woman's mind, Mo Tiange said softly. After reincarnation, we'll be different people. Our fate only lasts for this life, so we should cherish it. After Master Song Feng escaped, he didn't return. She stared thoughtfully at the stone door. Did Master Song Feng leave safely? Upon hearing this, Night Frost Devil Monarch said, the thing he snatched was the soul bead Hongxiao got from Ghost City. There are countless souls inside the soul bead, and its aura is very strong. With this thing, it can deceive ghost cultivators' spiritual senses. So that's how it is, Night Frost Devil Monarch sighed and smiled bitterly. He must have heard our voice transmission. I underestimated the cultivators of the celestial pole. Mo Tiange said, if that's the case, why were the three of you discovered with the soul bead? Night Frost Devil Monarch answered, the aura of the soul bead can only cover one person's aura. Tianxian can turn invisible, but Hongxiao and I have to rely on the soul bead, so… Oh! Mo Tiange nodded in understanding. No wonder Tianxian said he didn't have the strength to take Hongxiao with him. If he gave up on Hongxiao, they could leave safely. However, Night Frost Devil Monarch wasn't willing to give up on Hongxiao, so it became an unsolvable situation. The world was really strange. If Night Frost Devil Monarch gave up on Hongxiao and was willing to leave with Tianxian, Tianxian might not have made a move. Night Frost Devil Monarch was a late nascent soul cultivator. Although Tianxian wanted to kill her, he must have hesitated. If he just wanted her dead, he could have left alone and let them be killed by ghost cultivators, but he didn't. The dispute between them couldn't be solved by killing. Relying on the soul bead, Master Song Feng safely escaped from the tunnel. The black cloud dispersed. He stood in the air above Sandstorm City with the soul bead in his hand and a sneer on his face. You'll be trapped down there until you die. Even if you use the 10,000 miles sound-transmitting talisman to inform Qin Jinghe, he can't find you here. Thinking of Niushang, he said bitterly, Be **, you're lucky I didn't kill you with my own hands. He was about to turn into a black cloud and escape back to Langtu Mountain when he suddenly looked up and stared at the east with his withered eyes. Several flight lights flew over in an instant, and a glittering white net covered him from above. Master Song Feng was shocked. He turned into a black cloud and was about to escape. Unexpectedly, another flight light appeared in the place he was about to escape. The sword aura tore through the sky and rushed towards him mercilessly. Master Song Feng was shocked after dodging the sword aura. Then, flames soared into the sky, and at the same time, Lord Daoist Jinghe's triumphant voice rang out. Old Song Feng, what a coincidence. You're also here. As soon as he finished speaking, several flight lights surrounded him. The flight lights dispersed, revealing several people's faces. The one flying over from the east was Lord Daoist Jinghe, wearing a golden crown and luxurious clothes. He held a leaf fire gourd in his hand, ready to attack. On the west was a handsome young swordsman dressed in a black sword robe with a flying sword as bright as stars floating in front of him. On the south was a taciturn Daoist in plain clothes. His thin face was expressionless, and his eyes were cold. On the north was a woman in white holding a zither. Master Song Feng was shocked. Qin Jinghe, Venerable Swordsman Yuaning, Lord Daoist Wordless, and Ding Luan. Why did all these people come? Chapter 560. 3 cultivators in the late nascent soul stage and 1 in the middle nascent soul stage. Venerable Swordsman Yuaning and Lord Daoist Speechless had been in the late nascent soul stage for hundreds of years, and their strength was unfathomable. Lord Daoist Jinghe had just entered the late nascent soul stage not long ago, but he was well known for his bloodthirst. Together with Ding Luan, they were the top cultivators in the middle stage of the nascent soul stage. No matter how arrogant Master Song Feng was, he didn't think he could get the upper hand against these 4 people. In the black cloud, Master Song Feng's mind was as fast as lightning. He had decided to run, But where to run was a problem. As he thought about this, he suddenly sensed something. He turned his head and saw more than a dozen flight lights rushing towards him from the east. Sensing their cultivation levels, Master Song Feng was shocked. All of them are nascent soul cultivators. Hey, old Song Feng, look at the gift we prepared for you. Are you surprised? Lord Daoist Jinghe never fell behind when it came to adding insult to injury. The flight lights of the nascent soul cultivators arrived in a flash, and more than a dozen nascent soul and middle nascent soul cultivators showed up. Although it was extremely dangerous, Master Song Feng calmed down. After he reached the nascent soul stage with ordinary aptitude, he became the #1 cultivator in the celestial pole. Apart from fated chances, he didn't lack any wisdom. Qin Jinghe, you're so powerful. Do you want to kill me in one fell swoop? How would I dare? Lord Daoist Jinghe smiled. But I still have to leave a layer of skin, right? Oomph. A cold hum came from the black cloud. You want to keep me here with your numbers? You're too naive. Old Song Feng, you want to escape from the siege of so many people with just the nascent soul stage? You're too naive. It was Ding Luan who spoke. She and Master Song Feng had an old grudge, and they fought once on Demonic Mountain. Master Song Feng didn't answer. Qin Jinghe alone was hard enough to deal with, but now there was a group of people. Don't talk to him. Let's do it. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying said faintly and waved her right hand gently. The wind feather sword floating in front of her instantly turned into a sword light and rushed towards Master Song Feng like lightning. Gujian sect had lost a lot of people to Master Song Feng, and among them there was even a nascent soul cultivator. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying had once sought trouble with Master Song Feng because of this, but in the end he didn't gain any advantage. Now that he had a chance to kill Master Song Feng, he naturally wouldn't let it go. Master Song Feng didn't dare to underestimate the attack of a Queen Origin sword cultivator. The black clouds scattered around him suddenly gathered together and turned into a shield, meeting the wind feather sword head-on. The wind feather sword was called Wind Feather. It was as fast as the wind and as light as a feather. The moment it collided with the black cloud shield, it nimbly made a turn and stabbed toward Master Song Feng again. At the same time, the sound of the zither rang out. Ding Luan plucked the strings of the zither. Like a powerful army, swords and spears clashing, she attacked Master Song Feng murderously. Lord Daoist Jinghe made a hand seal, and Nanyang Li fire sprang out of the gourd, forming a 1,000-feet-long rainbow light that burned towards Master Song Feng. Dao Lord Speechless wasn't idle either. A giant net of lightning descended from the heavens, flashing with white light and occasionally crackling sounds could be heard. When the four of them attacked, all of them used the killing moves that they were famous for. Facing Master Song Feng, they didn't dare to take him lightly even if they were besieging him. Qin, she suddenly opened his eyes. After listening carefully for a while, he said, "There's movement." Upon hearing that, the other four people woke up from their meditation. "What's wrong?" Emo Tienge asked. "Qin," she said, "there's a fight of magical powers up there." Before he finished speaking, the surroundings shook. The stone used to build the sacrificial temple was made of unknown materials, but it was extremely hard. Cultivators fighting wouldn't make it collapse. Such a strong shaking, if it wasn't close to the place where the fight was taking place, would be extremely powerful. Judging from the current situation, it shouldn't be the former. Demon Monarch Knight Frost's expression changed slightly. He thought to himself, no wonder these people are so sure. This kind of movement means there must be more than one cultivator in the late nascent soul stage. The earth-shaking fight lasted for a quarter of an hour before it slowly quieted down. Emo Tiengo was puzzled. Where is the fight taking place? The one who answered was Demon Monarch Knight Frost. She said faintly, in Sandstorm City. Qin, she nodded. He could only roughly sense the location of the fight. After a brief calculation, it should be in Sandstorm City. Demon Monarch Knight Frost's words confirmed it. In Sandstorm City? Could it be that ghost cultivators want to come out? It's possible, Qin, she said. Now that we know there's a ghost city here, maybe those ghost cultivators will go all out and simply come out in a high profile to make us fear the strength of the ghost city and not dare to disturb us. Xianxia shook her head. There's a sacrificial temple and a secret storehouse here. Those ghost cultivators are wrong. They speculated, but they didn't know they were wrong. Ghost cultivators didn't want the world to know about the existence of the ghost city, at least not now. After 2 hours of silence, the mountain shook again. They even heard a thunderous explosion as if the mountain was collapsing. Gradually, the ghost cultivators outside the sacrificial temple became restless like a cat released into a group of mice. Sensing the panic, Jing Xingji couldn't sit still anymore. He said, "I'll go out and take a look." Demon Monarch Knight Frost also said, "I'll go too." Nie Wushang didn't need to be mentioned. She was safe here because of the spirit-concealing formation Xianxia laid, so she couldn't wait to go out. Xianxia was about to go out with Qin Shi when Fei Fei pulled her sleeve. "Don't go." Xianxia stopped Qin Shi. "What's wrong?" Xianxia pointed at Fei Fei. "It wants to subdue the white tiger." Qin Shi was surprised. "It has a way?" Xianxia didn't explain and just looked at Fei Fei. Fei Fei didn't waste any time. It silently chanted an obscure incantation, and its 4 claws slowly emitted a golden light. Xianxia and Qin Shi's spirits were shaken. They felt like their minds had never been so clear. Stepping on the golden light, Fei Fei leaped towards the white tiger. The two of them felt the killing intent in the air slowly dissipate, and their minds became clear. This was a very mysterious feeling. They seemed to have arrived in another world. The sky was high, the clouds were clear, the sun was bright, and the spring breeze was caressing their faces. It was extremely peaceful. "What are you standing there for?" Fei Fei's voice rang out, awakening the two of them from their intoxication. This time, it directly made a sound instead of using its divine sense to transmit its voice. Qin Shi sobered up and was stunned. "It can talk." Xianxia didn't have time to explain to him. She looked up and saw Fei Fei standing in the center. The white tiger had disappeared without a trace. "Can you really put it away?" Xianxia was surprised. The white tiger's body was so huge that the storage space it came with as a spiritual beast could actually hold it. Fei Fei didn't answer this stupid question. It lowered its head and looked at the golden, fist-sized light bead under its feet. It said regretfully, "It actually didn't recognize me as its master." "What's this?" Xianxia sensed the pure white tiger's breath in it. Fei Fei didn't absorb it completely. Fei Fei said, "The white tiger's power is too strong. I can't hold it, you guys try it." "What a pity." Xianxia smiled. The azure dragon bone she obtained wasn't complete, and Qin Shi's vermilion bird's breath hadn't been completely absorbed yet. If Fei Fei really took the whole white tiger, she would feel it was unfair. "Senior martial brother, you have metal spiritual roots. You can try it first." Xianxia called out when she remembered that Qin Shi's 3-yang real fire sword was also metal. Qin Shi nodded. Without any nonsense, he walked towards the white tiger light bead. He had already experienced a fated chance encounter with a divine beast, so he was still calm. He didn't immediately try to take it. Instead, he operated the pure yang art and covered his hand with a layer of spiritual aura before he grabbed the white tiger light bead. As soon as his spiritual aura touched the light bead suddenly released white tiger's breath, surging towards Qin Shi with a murderous intent. Once he realized something was wrong, Qin Shi immediately forced out the vermilion bird's flame to block the white tiger's breath. Although the vermilion bird's flame he subdued was much weaker, white tiger's attribute was metal and was restrained by fire. He only retreated a few steps before he stood firmly. Fei Fei was disappointed. Although you have metal spiritual roots, you haven't practiced metal cultivation techniques, so you're not strong enough to subdue white tiger's breath. Qin Shi had long prepared for this, so he didn't feel too disappointed. He turned to Xianxia. "Do you want to try it?" Although she agreed, Xianxia didn't think she could subdue white tiger's breath. She also hadn't practiced metal cultivation techniques. She only had the Great Heavenly Thunder technique, which was slightly related to the metal attribute. Sure enough, as soon as she touched the white tiger-like bead, it burst out with a strong killing intent. Fortunately, she was prepared for it. With a thought, golden lightning emerged from her hand. At the same time, she summoned the vermilion bird's flame to block it for her. What should we do? Fei was even more disappointed. Fertile water shouldn't be kept in an outsider's field. If the three of them, oh no, 2 people and 1 beast couldn't subdue it, wouldn't that be giving it to someone else? There was a loud noise outside, and the sacrificial temple shook even more violently. At the same time, a flame flew in from outside. She reached out, and the flame fell on his hand. It was a fire talisman. He flicked his finger, and the fire talisman turned into a wisp of smoke. A voice came through, "Little brat, you're still alive, right?" She smiled. "Master is here." Upon hearing Lord Daoist Jinghe's voice, Xianxia also felt relieved. "Then shall we go out?" Since they couldn't subdue it, they didn't need to stay. Xianxia patted Fei's spiritual beast bag. "I don't need to tell you, right?" Fei curled its lips and obediently returned to the spiritual beast bag. Having a master was good, at least it didn't need to take risks on its own. The 2 of them flew along the stone path and arrived at the damaged part of the stone wall in an instant. The ghost cultivators guarding outside were no longer there. Not far away, ghost cultivators were fighting with a group of human cultivators. There were about 20 human cultivators, and all of them were in the nascent soul realm. Although they weren't as many as ghost cultivators, their magic weapons were much more powerful, so the battle was temporarily tied. Xianxia saw Lord Daoist Jinghe at first glance. Who told him to be so eye-catching with his dazzling golden clothes? Master! Lord Daoist Jinghe turned to look at them and glared at them. 2 little brats. You really know how to cause trouble. You need a lesson, right? Xianxia giggled. Master can teach us a lesson when we go back. Less nonsense. Why aren't you helping us? Although it was delightful for master and disciple to reunite, they had to be careful of provoking public anger. Qin Shoujing only used a sound-transmitting talisman, but Qin Jinghe dragged a large group of nascent soul cultivators to fight. It was really annoying. Sure enough, Ding Luan shouted loudly, "Can you master and disciple talk after you're done fighting? If you keep talking, I'll leave." Xianxia and Qin cupped their fists towards the number 1 female cultivator in the celestial pole and joined the fight. At the same time, she sent a voice transmission to Jing Xingji, who wasn't too far away. "Fellow Daoist Jing, go back and take a look. Maybe you'll have a fated chance." Jing Xingji, who was fighting, looked at her with surprise. Xianxia showed a faint smile. Jing Xingji pondered for a moment, then pretended to be powerless and returned to the sacrificial temple. Chapter 561. The fight of dozens of nascent soul cultivators soon caused the whole mountain to collapse. This secret storehouse hidden in the West Mountain Range was finally exposed to the sun after tens of thousands of years. As soon as they saw the sun, the ghost cultivators turned pale with fright and hurriedly retreated to the ghost city. The human cultivators seized the opportunity and finally alerted the master of the ghost city, the ghost venerable. This ghost venerable was already at the peak of the late nascent soul realm, only a step away from the deification realm. Because ghost cultivators had no bodies, it was difficult for them to resist the power of heaven and earth. Once they advanced to the deification realm, they would face a great tribulation, so they didn't dare to do so. Even under the sun, the 3 late nascent soul cultivators and the ghost venerable only fought to a draw. In the end, the 2 sides shook hands and sat down to negotiate. These things had nothing to do with Xianxia and Qin Shi. With the elders here, they couldn't make decisions. They just sat leisurely on a relatively intact mountain, waiting for the result of the negotiation. In this war, Fengsha City and the mountain range connected to it were almost razed to the ground, causing the Shirong people not far from Fengsha City to shout that gods had descended. Looking at these Shirong people, Xianxia had a strange feeling. Thinking about it carefully, the legend of the Shirong people was quite close to the truth. They said Fengsha City was a city of devils, but in the end, There really was a ghost city hidden under Fengsha City. They said gods had descended. Weren't they, the cultivators, the gods in the eyes of the Shirong people? Jing Xingji flew out of the sacrificial temple with a happy face. The mountain collapsed, and the sacrificial temple was exposed. Qin Shoujing Emo Qingwei. He shouted from a distance, causing a lot of people to look at him. Nie Wushang curled her lips. He was really a very practical guy. He called whoever was good for him. Look, the three of them were sitting together, but this guy simply ignored her. The sword light fell on the mountain where they were. Jing Xingji put away his flying sword and smiled like peach blossoms flying everywhere. You subdued it? Emo Tiange asked. Jing Xingji nodded. He couldn't control the smile on his face. Haha, I've finally gotten lucky this time. Nie Wushang said indifferently, you've put good luck on your face. Do you want others to steal it? There are many jealous people here. Jing Xingji stopped smiling. Unfortunately, he was in a good mood. Even if he didn't smile, he was still beaming with joy. Ahem. He put on an act and stopped smiling. He looked at the nascent soul cultivators who were resting not far away and said, if they want to snatch this Daoist things, it depends on whether they have the ability or not. It wasn't that he was being arrogant, but it was good enough that he didn't rob ordinary Yuanchu and Yuanzhong cultivators. As for late Yuanchu cultivators, they could still run if they couldn't beat him. Just as they were chatting, the Night Frost Demon Monarch came over. Now that the celestial pole demonic path was at odds with each other, she was a demonic cultivator. If she hadn't reached an agreement with them, she would most likely be surrounded and attacked by them right now. The Night Frost Demon Monarch was very glad that he had chosen to work with them. Fellow Daoists. Fiend Lord Night Frost bowed. The four of them stood up and bowed in return. I'm going back to Yunzhong. Let's meet again if fate allows it. Fellow Yi Shuang, are you leaving so soon? The Night Frost Demon Lord swept his gaze across the surrounding cultivators and said, it's inconvenient to stay here. It's best if you leave as soon as possible. Mo Tiange thought of something and asked, fellow Daoist Night Frost, didn't you come here for something? If you leave now, wouldn't this trip be in vain? The Night Frost Demon Monarch lowered his gaze and said softly, there's no need. The four of them understood that he must have taken this thing for Tianxian. The atmosphere was awkward, so Mo Tiange said hurriedly, that being the case, we'll meet again. The Night Frost Demon Monarch looked up and showed a rare smile. We'll meet again. Once he finished speaking, he waved the purple satin, turned into a flight light, and quickly disappeared into the sky. Soon after the Night Frost Demon Monarch left, Lord Daoist Jinghe came out. As a late nascent soul great cultivator and the representative of Shenqing School, he naturally participated in the negotiations. Now that he came out, there should be a result. Master. Mo Tiange and Qin Shi shouted. Jing Xingji and Wushang stood up awkwardly and bowed. Senior Jinghe. Lord Daoist Jinghe waved his hand and said, why are you so polite? Sit down. He then took out the cloud carriage in a carefree manner and cast a spell, turning it into a gazebo. As expected of a late nascent soul cultivator, even his means of enjoyment were more brilliant than theirs. It could be seen that nascent soul cultivators also depended on accumulation. Those who were carefree wherever they went were most likely nascent soul cultivators who had been cultivating for a long time. Only then would they have the time to make these things in their spare time. As for those like them who found a random corner to squat, they were most likely people who hadn't formed their nascent soul for a long time or wholeheartedly cultivated. Although these means of enjoyment weren't important in fighting, if they fought normally, their momentum would be weakened. Mo Tiange wondered whether she should also make something. Ever since she embarked on the path to immortality, she hadn't stopped cultivating. Now that she was a nascent soul cultivator, cultivation speed wasn't the most important thing. She still had more than 1,000 years of lifespan. With her qualifications and resources, reaching the late nascent soul realm was only a matter of time. Therefore, the most important thing was accumulation, not only the accumulation of cultivation, but also the accumulation of mental state. The five of them sat in the gazebo. Qin Shi asked first, Master, how did your discussion go? Lord Daoist Jinghe said, since we didn't fight, we naturally reached an agreement. What was the result? The 4 pairs of eyes stared at Lord Daoist Jinghe. We repaired the damaged parts of the ghost city, and the storehouse and the sacrificial temple will belong to us. Both sides won't invade each other. Oh! This was the best result. Now that the celestial pole was facing enemies on both sides, it really couldn't afford a war. For these ghost cultivators, occupying the resources on the ground was also unnecessary. They were afraid of sunlight, so it was best if they could hide in the ghost city and cultivate without competing with the rest of the world. Lord Daoist Jinghe wasn't interested in these things, so he simply glanced at the 4 people without saying anything. Xianxia and Xianxia were scared by his gaze, and Wuxia and Xianxia also felt a bit uneasy. Because of Xianxia and Xianxia's relationship, the 2 of them naturally regarded Lord Daoist Jinghe as their elder. Now that they saw his expression, they couldn't help but think, did Lord Daoist Jinghe have a bad opinion of them and didn't want them to associate with them? Wuxia was used to feeling inferior. She was Master Song Feng's disciple, and Master Song Feng was hated by everyone in Kunwu. As for Xianxia, he couldn't help but think that he was an abandoned disciple of Gujian sect, so he really wasn't a good disciple to the sect. Unexpectedly, Lord Daoist Jinghe didn't even ask them. He just said, "Did you get something good?" Others might not know, but he knew there were good things in the sacrificial temple. She got the vermilion bird bow from the vermilion bird sacrificial temple, so there was no reason that the white tiger sacrificial temple didn't have anything. The white tiger's faded chance was useless to ghost cultivators, so it must have been taken by the 4 of them. Xianxia chuckled. Master, are you jealous? Lord Daoist Jinghe rolled his eyes at her. Don't show off your faded chance. Otherwise, if I can't control myself one day, I'll snatch all your treasures. Yes, Master, snatching a disciple will cause inner demons. Inner demons my ass. I'm already in the late stage of the nascent soul realm, so there's nothing to worry about even if I don't advance to the deification realm. Both Wuxia and Xianxia were dumbstruck as they watched the 2 of them spouting nonsense. Both of them had masters before, so when they faced their masters, they were always respectful. Unlike them, the master and disciple, who spouted nonsense. After Xianxia recovered from his surprise, he thought, the rumors are indeed true. Lord Daoist Jinghe is very strange. He doesn't look like a nascent soul cultivator at all. After talking nonsense, Lord Daoist Jinghe looked at Wuxia with a smile. Girl, you're old man Song Feng's disciple, right? That old guy doesn't look like a person, but he actually taught such a disciple. Although he didn't say it explicitly, his tone showed his appreciation for Wuxia. Wuxia was a bit overwhelmed by the favor. Senior? Lord Daoist Jinghe waved his hand and said, you don't have to be so nervous. I have a big grudge against your master, and it has nothing to do with you. You're friends with my 2 brats, so I regard you as a junior. Thank you, Senior. Wuxia suppressed the excitement in her heart and answered. Lord Daoist Jinghe smiled and said, since I regard you as a junior, I'll give you a word of advice. Your master made a lot of enemies in Kunwu, so if you don't have anything else to do, you shouldn't stay in the celestial pole. Now that the world has changed, you can go anywhere, and Yunzhong is very suitable. Wuxia answered respectfully, this matter is over, so Junior originally planned to return to Yunzhong. Lord Daoist Jinghe nodded with a smile, then turned to Xianxia and said with a sigh, boy, your fate can be considered full of misfortunes. I knew your master in the past, so I'll give you a word of advice. Being an individual cultivator is certainly unrestrained, but with a cultivation group as a backer, some things are much more convenient. Old Daoist Foling is dead, and you're already a nascent soul cultivator, so the obstacles in the past don't exist anymore. Xianxia looked serious, which was rare for him. After listening to Lord Daoist Jinghe's words, he was silent for a moment, then respectfully replied, thank you for your advice, Senior. Junior will definitely keep it in mind. However, he didn't make his attitude clear. Lord Daoist Jinghe knew Xianxia had his own ideas, so he didn't say anything more. After all, people were different. Although he lived several hundred years longer than these juniors, He couldn't make decisions for them. Right. Lord Daoist Jinghe glanced at Nye Wuxiang and said, "When we came, we happened to run into old man Song Feng here." Mo Tiange was shocked and asked impatiently, "What was the result?" Master Song Feng. "He even gave up his body." With Nye Wuxiang here, Lord Daoist Jinghe put away his complacency and said, "Although we didn't make him stay with so many people, we still heavily injured him. At the very least, he shouldn't think about stirring up trouble in the next 100 years. Nye Wuxiang felt both relieved and sad. Since her master was seriously injured, she didn't have to worry about him chasing after her for a while. This thing was left by old man Song Feng. "You can play with it." Lord Daoist Jinghe took out a gray bead from his sleeve and threw it to Mo Tiange. This soul bead was very rare, but it had no specific use and was nothing more than a toy. At that moment, a sword light flew towards them from not far away, and a handsome young swordsman landed on top of the mountain. Mo Tiange discovered his cultivation level was in the late nascent soul realm and the flying sword floating above his head, so she knew he was Venerable Swordsman Yuanying of Gujin sect. She didn't expect this top late nascent soul sword cultivator to look like a teenager. Upon seeing him, Lord Daoist Jinghe said lazily, "Old man Yuanying, why are you in the mood to come here?" Venerable Swordsman Yuanying was famous for being indifferent. She didn't care about anything and rarely interacted with other cultivators. For him to take the initiative to come here was like the sun rising from the west. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying glanced at him and said coldly, "It's none of your business." She then walked towards Jing Xingji. Jing Xingji hastily stood up. Although he didn't salute, his expression and behavior were very respectful. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying stared at him for a long time before asking faintly, "Are you willing to return to Gujin sect?" Chapter 562. If it was someone else who said this, Mo Tiange would definitely scoff at it. In the past, when Jing Xingji was ostracized in Gujin sect, why didn't he come out to uphold justice? Now that Jing Xingji had formed his nascent soul, he was called back to Gujin sect. However, this person was Honorable Swordsman Yuanying, so this situation was not valid. Apart from Empress Yuan's cultivation level, Venerable Swordsman Yuanying was also famous in the celestial pole for his sword maniac and his righteousness. He was crazy about swords and collected flying swords and comprehended swordsmanship for fun. Other than that, he had no mood to deal with miscellaneous matters. Because of this, Gujin sect also established the title of Deacon Great Elder in addition to the Head Great Elder, and the previous Deacon Great Elder was Sword Venerable Fulling. Honorable Swordsman Yuanying had never interfered in the affairs of the sect, but he had always been righteous all his life. As long as he knew something, he would never be biased. Therefore, Mo Tiange was willing to believe that Venerable Swordsman Yuanying definitely didn't know about Jing Xingji being ostracized in the group. It had to be known that it had only been 100 years since Swordsman Zhongguang's death and Jing Xingji's departure from the sect. To Swordsman Yuanying, this was merely the time it took for her to enter seclusion. Because of this, after Sword Venerable Fulling died, Sword Venerable Yuanying had to come out to manage the sect's affairs. Faced with Venerable Swordsman Yuanying's invitation, Jing Xingji was first overwhelmed by the favor, but then he became hesitant. Venerated Swordsman Yuanying was a godlike existence among the ancient sword sect disciples. Every ancient sword sect disciple viewed Venerated Swordsman Yuanying as their idol, and Jing Xingji was no exception. If it was in the past, it would be an unparalleled honor for an ancient sect's disciple to receive a word from Venerable Swordsman Yuanying. However, Jing Xingji didn't answer for a long time as he recalled what happened to him in Gujin sect. Honorable Swordsman Yuanying looked at him calmly. There was no coercion or temptation. He was just patiently waiting for his answer. Jing Xingji gritted his teeth and finally said, "Senior Yuanying is too kind. I'm used to living a free and unfettered life. I don't want to be bound by the sect anymore." He addressed Venerable Swordsman Yuanying as a senior instead of the martial uncle of the past. Hearing this answer, Honorable Swordsman Yuanying finally looked disappointed. It was difficult for sword cultivators to make a realm breakthrough. Gujin sect didn't have fewer disciples than Xianxia school, but there were far fewer nascent soul cultivators. After Venerable Swordsman Fuling passed away, apart from Venerable Swordsman Yuanying, there was only Venerable Swordsman Xiaohe in the early stage of the nascent soul realm. Although another disciple advanced to the nascent soul realm in the past 100 years, 2 mediocre cultivators in the early Yuanying stage weren't enough to support Gujin sect, the third sect in the celestial pole. As for Venerable Swordsman Yuanying, he looked young, but in fact he was a cultivator from the same generation as Lord Daoist Jinghe. If they wanted to maintain Gujin sect's prosperity, they had to nurture a cultivator capable of inheriting Venerable Swordsman Yuanying's position within 500 to 600 years. As for the 2 nascent soul cultivators of Gujin sect, whether it was in terms of comprehension or age, they weren't good enough to shoulder such a heavy responsibility. For this reason, Venerated Swordswoman Yuanying had no choice but to look for disciples with superior aptitude and temperament among the core formation cultivators. She planned to accept them as her direct disciples and pass on her mantle. In terms of aptitude and comprehension, Jing Xingji was top-notch among the new generation of disciples. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been accepted as a disciple by Venerated Swordsman Yuanying as soon as he entered the sect. He was one of the cultivators Venerated Swordsman Yuanying thought had a high chance of advancing to the nascent soul realm. Unexpectedly, when she looked for him, she found out that Jing Xingji was missing. Later, she learned about the unfair treatment Jing Xingji received in the sect in the past 100 years. However, it was all too late. Jing Xingji killed Venerable Swordsman Fuling's disciple and didn't plan to come back. On this trip to the far west, she unexpectedly saw Jing Xingji and sure enough, he formed his nascent soul. She naturally wanted to call Jing Xingji back to Gujin sect. Unfortunately, Jing Xingji's experiences in the past 100 years made her lose her sense of belonging to the sect, and she didn't want to go back. With a sigh, Venerated Swordsman Yuanying said, "Fuling bullied and humiliated you like that, so I don't blame you for not wanting to go back to the sect." Jing Xingji wanted to say something but hesitated. His experiences in Gujin sect had nothing to do with Venerated Swordsman Yuanying. He really wanted to say a few words, but he was afraid that Venerated Swordsman Yuanying would misunderstand, so he could only keep his mouth shut. "Forget it." Venerated Swordsman Yuanying regained his composure and said to Jing Xingji, "As the head Grand Supreme Elder of Gujin sect, I have the responsibility to protect my disciples. I'm also responsible for the injustice you encountered. Since you don't want to go back to Gujin sect, I'll give you a fated chance to compensate for your 100 years of grievance." Jing Xingji was stunned and stared blankly at Venerated Swordsman Yuanying. He didn't expect that Venerated Swordsman Yuanying not only didn't blame him for his unwillingness to go back to Gujin sect, but also wanted to compensate him. He lowered his head and felt that the unfair experiences in the past 100 years were nothing to him. Those cold eyes, those rumors. At least now, the person he respected the most in Gujin sect knew about the injustice he had suffered. Venerated Swordsman Yuanying opened his hand, and a small flying sword appeared in his palm. He said, "This flying sword is a keepsake of a senior in my sect. This senior's divine power is amazing, and his comprehension of the sword far surpasses ours. I once promised him one thing, and in return he's willing to pass on his lifetime comprehension to the person who holds the keepsake. You just need to follow the clues to find him." With a raise of his hand, the small flying sword gently flew in front of Jing Xingji. At the same time, Venerated Swordsman Yuanying secretly transmitted his voice to Jing Xingji, giving him the clues. After doing all this, Venerated Swordsman Yuanying said, "I'm going back to Gujin sect. If you want to come back one day, Gujin sect's gate will always be open for you." Once he finished speaking, he didn't wait for Jing Xingji to express his gratitude. With a flick of his sleeve, he stepped onto the flying sword and turned into a sword light, disappearing into the sky. Holding the small flying sword, Jing Xingji stared blankly at the place where Venerated Swordsman Yuanying disappeared, remaining silent for a long time. "Hey, old man Yuanying is still as good at buying people's hearts as before." Lord Daoist Jinghe's voice broke the silence. He cast a sidelong glance at Jing Xingji. "Brat, if you want to go back, no one's stopping you." Jing Xingji's hot blood was splashed clean. He said somewhat angrily out of shame, "Senior Jinghe, didn't you just urge me to go back to the sect?" Lord Daoist Jinghe waved his hand and said, "I just can't stand old man Yuanying putting on an act." "Senior," Jing Xingji protested. She dared to bet that Lord Daoist Jinghe was in a bad mood because Jing Xingji stole his limelight. Who told venerated swordsman Yuanying to make Jing Xingji commit suicide with just a few words? Sure enough, when she turned around, she also smiled without saying anything. With a flash of light, the small flying sword in Jing Xingji's hand was put into his Jiankuan ring. He was thinking that after this matter was over, he would go look for fated chances. Since venerated swordsman Yuanying said fated chances, it must be a great fated chance. Jing Xingji never doubted that fated chances were fake. If it were someone else, Jing Xingji would have doubted their motives, but this person was venerated swordsman Yuanying. His character could be testified by anyone. After a while, the flight lights crisscrossed. These nascent soul cultivators, either in groups or alone, left Fengsha City. Lord Daoist Jinghe said, "Bian and Ding Luan will stay behind to clean up the situation. When we report to the Immortal Alliance, they'll send a group of cultivators to guard this place. You've found a lot of materials for the Immortal Alliance, so you must be rewarded." The latter part of his sentence was directed at Mo Tiange and Qin Shi. This task was originally Huaziki and Zhong Xi's responsibility, but unexpectedly, the two of them died. Instead, Mo Tiange and Qin Shi, who happened to come to the far west, completed the task. For the Immortal Alliance fighting on both sides, this secret storehouse was just the right time. After the Immortal Alliance was established, it naturally had to mobilize resources and build a storehouse to supply the materials needed for the war. Each cultivation group couldn't always be responsible for it themselves. Any organization without financial power could easily become an empty shell. However, the members of the Immortal Alliance were the most complicated in the history of the Celestial Pole. Whether they were big cultivation groups or small individual cultivators, all the cultivators in the Celestial Pole were under the jurisdiction of the Immortal Alliance. As a result, how to build this storehouse, where to mobilize resources, and how much each cultivation group had to contribute became thorny issues. Because of this matter, the elders in Kuanzhong City quarreled countless times. At this time, the treasure map in the far west, which they originally didn't have high hopes for, unexpectedly found the secret storehouse of a big ancient cultivation group, and the problem was solved. This secret storehouse was too big. If they had to divide it, who should divide it, who should divide it, who should divide it, who should divide it, these were all problems. If they didn't handle it well, there would be conflicts within the Immortal Alliance. It would be better to directly fill it into the Immortal Alliance's storehouse. This way, each force wouldn't have to rack their brains to shirk responsibility, and they wouldn't have to quarrel over the distribution of resources. The most important thing was that this secret storehouse was more valuable than any cultivation group's storehouse. In this way, the position of the Immortal Alliance would be firmly stabilized. Of course, there must be follow-up ways to make money, but this was a matter for the future. Mo Tiange said, "What reward? A spirit-controlling magic weapon? In your dreams." Lord Daoist Jinghe glared at her, then said carelessly, "It's probably just picking a few things from the storehouse." He had already seen this storehouse. There weren't any amazing magic weapons, but most of them were materials. Although it was rare, it wasn't enough to make him envious. "In that case, Master will take it on your behalf." Lord Daoist Jinghe glanced at her and asked, "You don't plan to go to the Immortal Alliance?" "Master, I haven't completed my goal yet. I don't have much time." "All right." Lord Daoist Jinghe thought for a while, then said, "Master will take care of this matter for you. However, now that the Immortal Alliance has been established, we need a lot of manpower to fight on two fronts. Our Xianxia school has 8 nascent soul cultivators, so it's not a big deal to lose 2 of you. However, we can't always let other people take care of this matter. When this matter is over, you have to replace them." "Yes," Mo Tiange and Qin Shi answered. Qin Shi didn't mind, but Mo Tiange knew that aside from taking care of the chores in Clear Spring Peak, She almost never contributed to the school. If it was during normal times, she could naturally enjoy the school's offerings, but now was a troubled time. It wouldn't be right if she didn't contribute to the school. If there's no result in the end, you don't have to be afraid. Lord Daoist Jinghe looked at Mo Tiange and said, Yuanying, Bian, and those other old guys all have some friendship with me. When the time comes, we, the late nascent soul cultivators, gather together. I don't believe we can't solve your problem. Mo Tiange was touched. Ever since she worshipped her master, he did too many things for her, but she did very little for him. If there was a need in the future, she would definitely go through water and tread on fire for her master. All right. Lord Daoist Jinghe waved his hand, turning the pavilion back into a cloud carriage. Master's going back to Kunwu. If there's nothing else, come back early. Without waiting for their answer, he waved his hand and disappeared into the horizon on the cloud carriage. When Lord Daoist Jinghe's figure disappeared, there were no other nascent soul cultivators around. The four of them looked at each other. Mo Tiange took the initiative to speak. What about you? Nie Wuxiang said, I'm going back to Yunzhong. These days, I've been thinking that my master probably has some means to know my position, so he came looking for me as soon as I returned to the celestial pole. Now that he's seriously injured, it's a good opportunity for me. I have to take advantage of this time to improve my cultivation level. But don't you have a cultivation technique? Mo Tiange asked. Nie Wuxiang smiled bitterly. Unless my master is willing to pass me a cultivation technique, where else can I get one? Fortunately, I'm already in the nascent soul realm. At worst, I can just slowly explore and create my own cultivation technique. Even so, how could it be easy to create one's own cultivation technique? That won't be necessary. She took out a Qiankuan bag and handed it to her. As I expected, this thing is related to your cultivation technique. Nie Wuxiang took it, touched the Qiankuan bag, and was stunned to find it was a stone tablet. Mo Tiange knew what he took out must be Mei Feng's primordial devil stone tablet, so she said, This is a devil cultivator's item. It's useless to us, so you should keep it. Nie Wuxiang nodded and smiled. Okay. She wouldn't thank him with words, so she would repay him if she had the chance in the future. What about you? Mo Tiange turned to Jing Xingji. Jing Xingji said, In any case, I have nothing to do. I'll go look for the fated chance Martial Uncle Yuanying gave me. Mo Tiange curled her lips. This guy, he's only willing to call me Martial Uncle now that venerable swordsman Yuanying isn't here. Do you have something important to do? Jing Xingji looked at the two of them. When Lord Daoist Jinghe said he wanted to gather late-stage nascent soul cultivators in the celestial pole, they knew Mo Tiange encountered a very serious problem. She nodded and sighed. Do you need our help? Jing Xingji said matter-of-factly. Nie Wuxiang also didn't object. This matter can't be solved with more people. She shook his head. You guys go. Okay, call me if you need anything. Jing Xingji took out a jade talisman, cut a sliver of his divine sense, put it inside, and threw it to them. I'm leaving. Without saying any nonsense, Jing Xingji flew away on his sword. Nie Wuxiang did the same thing and passed the 10,000 miles sound-transmitting talisman to them. I'm also leaving. 100 years is still too short. We'll meet again someday, Mo Tiange said sincerely. Nie Wuxiang smiled and nodded. She also didn't say any nonsense and turned into a black flight light, flying far away. Chapter 563. After everyone left, she asked, Do you have an idea? Mo Tiange took out the soul bead Lord Daoist Jinghe threw at her and said with a smile, I just thought of it. She stared at the gloomy soul bead in confusion. What's the use of this? Mo Tiange said, All the traps and formations in the passageways outside the storehouse have been cracked. Logically speaking, Xiao Xilan's group must have come to the storehouse. However, there are no traces of them in the storeroom. There are only two possibilities. One is that they left the storeroom safely and went somewhere else. The other is that they disappeared in the storeroom. She pondered for a moment and immediately understood. Ghost City. You're right. Tienga stared at the soul bead. From time to time, several evil ghost faces protruded from the surface of the bead. They looked terrifying, but they couldn't break free from the soul bead's shackles. There are dozens of ghost cultivators in the nascent soul realm, and Ghost City has been built here for at least 10,000 years. They definitely know where Xiao Xilan went. How many nascent soul stage ghost cultivators are we going to find? The others had left, but Dao Lord Speechless and Ding Luan were still in the sacrificial temple, waiting for the people from the Immortal Alliance to arrive. They could go and contact them now. Presumably, Dao Lord Speechless and Ding Luan would show them some respect. Tienga shook her head. There's no need to go through so much trouble. There are many souls in this soul bead. Perhaps they know. After saying that, she loosened her grip, and the soul bead floated in midair. I'll extract the soul. You stand guard. She nodded. With a wave of his hand, the red sword light split into countless sword lights, turning into a curtain wall that surrounded him. At the same time, he retreated slightly, just in case. Originally, even nascent soul cultivators couldn't touch soul objects. However, Tienga had a soul bead, so she could borrow its power and use it a little. Tienga made dazzling hand seals with both hands, then gathered her aura and focused her mind. A wisp of pure spiritual aura condensed on her fingertips and pointed at the soul bead. On the surface of the soul bead, the gray barrier of light was suddenly broken. Countless souls squeezed into this small crack, pushing against each other and squeezing out of shape. Finally, a soul popped its head out and squeezed out from the damaged area with great difficulty. Tienga immediately waved her hand, drawing the other gray specks of light to this area and blocking the hole. The soul that was squeezed out was a middle-aged man with a sluggish and stiff face. Looking at his appearance, Tienga felt he didn't seem to have any spiritual intelligence. Even so, she still asked, "Who are you? Tell me your name." The middle-aged man turned his head in a daze and did not answer. Tienga asked again, "Who are you?" "State your name." The soul still did not answer. Could it be that it had already lost its intelligence? It was highly possible that this soul pearl could restrain souls, or perhaps it could even refine souls. After thinking for a while, she patiently asked again, "Who are you? Tell me your name." The soul kept turning its head and finally stopped. Am I out?" His voice was stiff with a hint of disbelief. It was good that it still had spiritual intelligence. Tienga heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Yes, you've come out of the soul bead." "Ah." Although her voice was stiff, Tienga could still hear the joy in his voice. She didn't know how long this person had been trapped in the soul pearl. Maybe he was trapped inside after he died? After a long time, the soul calmed down and bowed. "Senior, thank you for giving me a new life. With this, I can enter the cycle of reincarnation again." Tienga said, "There's no hurry. I have something to ask you." "Yes, Senior." "Junior will tell you everything I know," the soul said respectfully. The soul said respectfully. After a while, he had finally adapted to his current state and was no longer as stiff as before. Tienga was very satisfied with his attitude and asked, "From what you said, you were a cultivator? May I know your identity and where did you come from?" The soul said, "Yes, Junior is a cultivator from the Seven Mysteries sect. I used to be in the core formation realm. After I fell on Demonic Mountain, my obsession didn't disperse. Later, for some reason, I was sucked into this thing and was trapped until now." The Seven Mysteries sect? The two of them had strange expressions. They had heard of the Seven Mysteries sect, but it was a sect from tens of thousands of years ago and had long disappeared. The current 7 great sects were passed down through tens of thousands of years of trials. There were also countless sects that used to be extremely prosperous but gradually declined until they disappeared. The Seven Mysteries sect was one of them. In the history of the Celestial Pole, the Seven Mysteries sect flourished 50,000 years ago and then gradually declined until its inheritance was severed 30,000 years ago. This soul was a cultivator from the Seven Mysteries sect, a cultivator from at least 30,000 years ago. "Seniors, could it be that you and the Seven Mysteries sect?" Tienga waved her hand and said, We don't have any disputes with the Seven Mysteries sect. It's just that the Seven Mysteries sect has disappeared. Disappeared? The voice suddenly rose. The soul was extremely surprised. How could it disappear? The Seven Mysteries sect is a famous cultivation group in the celestial pole with many nascent soul elders. Xianxia said, since there's life, there's death. The Seven Mysteries sect disappeared 30,000 years ago. 30,000 years? The soul murmured. So it has already been 30,000 years. He suddenly turned his head, looked towards the east, and shouted, Master, disciple could not complete the task, I will never see you again. The stiff voice sounded a little sad. After a while, the soul calmed down and bowed. Senior, please ask. Xianxia nodded and asked, what is this soul bead? The soul answered, to be honest, Junior also doesn't know what this bead is. Junior only knows that it was born in the Ghost City realm and will automatically absorb some souls. The Ghost City realm? It's the place where the Ghost City is connected to the outside world, the soul explained. Junior learned from other souls that many souls entered the Ghost City through this place, but for some reason, they were all absorbed by this bead. That's how it came to be. Oh! Xianxia's mind raced and she asked, then let me ask you. Several thousand years ago, was there a group of cultivators who came to the Ghost City realm? The soul was at a loss. Several thousand years ago. He had been in the soul bead for a long time. Seeing that he didn't know anything, Xianxia said, it was a group of nascent soul cultivators. The soul said, I remember. I don't know how long ago, there was a nascent soul cultivator who broke into the Ghost City and ran into the Ghost Gate. He was killed by more than 10 nascent soul ghost cultivators and his soul was also absorbed by this bead. The two of them were overjoyed. Xianxia asked, what was the lineup of that group of cultivators? Was there a woman among them? The soul said, it seemed to be 5 people, and there was indeed a female cultivator among them. What was her name? The soul shook his head. There are more than 10 million souls in this soul bead. Junior doesn't know. Xianxia felt relieved. It didn't matter if she didn't know her name. If Xiao Xilan's soul was really in this bead, she could always find it. Thank you. Xianxia glanced at Qin Shi. Qin Shi nodded and withdrew the sword light around him. You can go. The soul bowed and said, thank you, Senior. Then it disappeared with the wind. Since he was free from the soul bead, he could enter samsara again as long as he dispersed his obsession. If his obsession was still there, he could also become a ghost cultivator instead of being trapped inside, unable to live or die. The sword light surrounded him again. Xianxia did the same thing and released another soul. This time, her luck wasn't good. Maybe it was because she was trapped for too long, but this soul already lost its spiritual wisdom and became a wandering soul. Helpless, Xianxia could only let it go. After doing this several times, she finally released another soul with spiritual wisdom. This soul didn't have any impression of this matter. The jade rabbit rose and the golden crow fell. Day and night changed. On the second day, another soul finally had an impression of this matter, confirming what the first soul said. Xianxia felt a little relieved. Since this matter was true, she could definitely find Xiao Xilan after searching all the souls in the soul bead. It took a lot of time to try tens of thousands of souls one by one, but they had enough patience. First, cultivators like them had to meditate for a very long time each time. Once they entered closed-door meditation, they might even enter closed-door meditation for more than 100 years, so they'd long been very patient. Second, this matter was related to their lives. Now that hope was right in front of them, how could they not be patient? Questioning the souls, resting and questioning again. Several days passed, and Xianxia became more and more excited. As more and more souls confirmed this news, the souls in the soul bead became fewer and fewer, and the possibility of finding Xiao Xilan became higher and higher. When she released the soul that traveled with Xiao Xilan, she finally confirmed this matter. Xianxia didn't continue immediately after letting this soul go with the wind. Instead, she put away the soul bead, picked up a stone, and sat down. Upon seeing this, Xianxia withdrew his sword light and sat next to her. "What's wrong?" Tianga's fingers trembled a little as she said, "I hope I wasn't happy for nothing." Although she didn't start this matter until she reached the nascent soul realm, she often thought about this matter in the past 100 years. After all, there was a restriction in her mind, just like there was a sword hanging over her head. Once the silk rope tied to the sword broke, her little life would be over. She had outstanding qualifications, many treasures in her hands, and a bright future ahead of her. How could she be willing to let her fate be controlled by others? Every time she thought about this matter, she wanted to tear Wanderer Ziwei's corpse into 1,000 pieces. Unfortunately, the corpse of the other party was long gone. The wisp of divine sense that was left behind was going to disappear sooner or later. That won't happen. Xianxia was much calmer. In the past few days, we can be sure Xiao Xilin is inside. Tianga also knew the soul that traveled with Xiao Xilin had been found. As long as Xiao Xilin didn't lose her consciousness, she was inside. It was just that this matter was too important, so she was a bit worried. After resting for a while, the two of them stood up again and began to extract the soul. Tianga tore open the surface of the soul bead and muttered in her heart, "Senior Xiao Xilin, you mustn't lose your consciousness. The person who shared your pillow with you as deep as the sea is actually the enemy who destroyed your family. You can't take revenge, and you can't stay with your lover. With such an obsession, you won't lose your consciousness and become a wandering soul, right?" As she thought about this, another soul broke free from the soul bead and appeared in front of her. It was a young and beautiful woman wearing a plain white dress. Although it was only a soul, her spiritual aura was still threatening. "Or you, tell me your name." The soul looked up and quickly adapted to her condition. "Xiao Xilin thanks fellow Daoist for giving me a second life." Tianga was stunned, but soon she was overjoyed and asked, "You're Xiao Xilin? Xuanji School's Xiao Xilin?" Chapter 564. Xiao Xilin was stunned. She'd been trapped for thousands of years, so she was a bit unfamiliar with people. After a while, she asked tentatively, "Fellow Daoist, you are—" "I'm a cultivator from Xianxia School." "Oh." Xiao Xilin nodded. "Fellow Daoist, you're so young. You must have formed your nascent soul recently, right? I've never heard of such a young fellow nascent soul cultivator from Xianxia School." Xiao Xilin's expression had always been calm. Although she was only a soul, her bearing was still extraordinary. Tianga praised him inwardly. No wonder Wanderer Ziwei still couldn't forget him. "Senior Xiao, you don't know, but 5,000 years have passed. This world isn't the one you're familiar with." Xiao Xilin was stunned and didn't regain her composure for a long time. Then, "Senior has been trapped in this soul bead for 5,000 years. 5,000 years, Xiao Xilin murmured. 5,000 years. Upon seeing her expression, Tianga frowned. "Senior." She was afraid Xiao Xilin would lose control after learning the world had changed. Xiao Xilin quickly put away her sadness. "Thank you for saving me, fellow Daoist. May I ask how Xuanji School is now?" Tianga paused for a moment, then said, "Xuanji School declined not long after Senior fell." This time, Xiao Xilin just closed her eyes and sighed. Knowing that 5,000 years had passed, she already guessed that Xuanji School no longer existed. Xuanji School's foundation was too shallow. Once she fell, even if they weren't destroyed by others, they would have ended up in internal strife. Xiao Xilin quickly composed herself and asked, "Fellow Daoist, may I ask how you know about my origin?" Tianga smiled and said frankly, "We came to look for you." Xiao Xilin was surprised again. Then she heard an even more surprised sentence. "Senior Xiao, do you remember the name Su Jiwei?" Xiao Xilin was speechless as if she had been hit by a heavy punch. Seeing her like this, Tianga knew she also had deep feelings for Wanderer Ziwei, but fate made fools of people. She sighed softly and said, "I was entrusted by Wanderer Ziwei to look for Senior Xiao." After a while, Xiao Xilin's expression slowly calmed down. She smiled bitterly and said, "Wanderer Ziwei, Does he really think he's a wanderer just because he left the school? Su Jiwei, can you pretend nothing happened just because you don't face it? There is no medicine for regret in this world, and you can't turn back time. She spoke each word calmly, but both of them could hear the sorrow in her voice. There were many sad things in this world, but the most sorrowful was the hopeless parting. Knowing that the other person was still alive in this world, knowing that they loved each other, yet they could not be together. Neither Mo Tiange nor Qin Shi interrupted her until she asked again, Su Jiwei, 5,000 years have passed, so he can't still be alive. Could he have advanced to the deification realm? Mo Tiange smiled and said, in Senior Zhao's opinion, how high is the possibility of Senior Ziwei advancing to the deification realm? Xiao Xilan said without the slightest hesitation, with his talent and temperament, it wouldn't be strange if he reached the deification stage. However, if he had really reached the soul formation stage, he would have personally come to find me. Mo Tiange sighed. Senior has a deep understanding of Senior Ziwei. He indeed hasn't reached the deification realm. Xiao Xilan smiled bitterly. We've been husband and wife for 200 years. How could I not know his temperament? Since he asked fellow Daoist to find me, he must have encountered something that he couldn't do anything about. Senior Ziwei once took a step into the deification realm, but unfortunately he failed in the end. After he died, his divine sense was sealed. Mo Tiange briefly explained what happened. Of course, she didn't mention the restriction placed on her. Xiao Xilan was silent after listening to her story. Although she could forcibly bring her soul back, Mo Tiange didn't want to force her. She said, Senior Xiao, no matter what grudges you had between the two of you, it's all in the past. Now, one of you only has divine sense and the other only has a soul. Before long, both of you will disappear, so what grudges can't be resolved? Once your memories dissipate, you'll be strangers in your next life. Xiao Xilan felt like she was struck by lightning. She murmured, strangers? Mo Tiange didn't speak again. Although it was painful not to be together, at least they knew that the person they loved still existed in this world and that the other person also missed them. Therefore, even if they could never be together, they still had the happiness of being alone. But if they became strangers, the only warmth left in their hearts would also be gone. For people like them who had love in their hearts, this was the most unbearable thing. Xiao Xilan didn't say anything. In this short period of time, she remembered a lot of things. Although there were thousands of souls inside the soul pearl, most of them were wandering souls. There were only a few souls that retained their memories. The reason these souls could retain their memories was because they had obsessions and didn't want their memories to be erased. Even so, as time passed, the soul's spiritual wisdom would slowly dissipate until they became wandering souls. Obsessions weren't unchanging. As time passed, obsessions would also slowly fade away. She was the only one who retained her spiritual wisdom during these 5,000 years and didn't dissipate at all. Because her obsessions were engraved deeper than anyone else's. Not to mention 50 million years, even if it was 10,000 years or 100,000 years, she knew that she absolutely wouldn't forget it. When she was young, her family was destroyed, she painstakingly cultivated for 100 years, and then she met him. He wasn't a good person. She knew it the moment she met him, but she never thought he would be one of the murderers who exterminated Tianliang School. Those hands were once stained with the blood of Tianliang School, and among them were her relatives. If she was in the school that day, she might have died in his hands, and there wouldn't be the rest of the story. But she definitely wouldn't forget this suffering, and she couldn't accept that the person who exterminated the school was the person who shared the same bed as her. So, she could only leave, return to Xuanji School, and never see him again. Sometimes she would think, why did she meet him? Why was he the culprit who exterminated the school? If she had nothing to do with Tianliang School, she could ignore all the evil he had done. But there was no medicine for regret in this world, and she couldn't turn back time. When she was forming her nascent soul, she was almost trapped in her heart demon and couldn't get out. In the end, she succeeded because of a belief. Even if they couldn't be together, at least they lived under the same sky, looked at the same mountains, breathed the same air, and walked the same path. After 1,000 years, they would all pass away, and all their grudges would be gone with the wind. But she didn't wait for such an ending. He betrayed the school and sent a message saying that he would wait for her in 9 Spirit Mountains Wind Breath Valley forever, even if it was 100 years, 1,000 years, until he passed away. And she died a violent death. She wasn't willing to accept such an ending. How could she accept it? She couldn't love him, and she couldn't kill him. In this life, she was in a dilemma, and every step she took was difficult. This obsession, from the moment the truth was revealed, sowed a seed in her heart. Day by day, it grew stronger until it completely filled her heart. Now, 5,000 years had passed. Only a few people remembered the disaster of Tianliang School's extermination. What they saw was only a few lines of words in ancient records. Even the Xuanji school they rebuilt also disappeared. But he kept his promise and waited for her in Wind Breath Valley until he passed away. She, on the other hand, became a ghost and was trapped in the soul bead for 5,000 years. Maybe she could keep her memories and become a ghost cultivator, but what about him? His divine sense would dissipate sooner or later, and Su Jiwei would no longer exist in this world. Emo Tienga heard Xiao Xilan's calm voice. "Take me there." Emo Tienga heaved a sigh of relief. She broke the soul bead again and released all the souls inside. "Senior, please enter the soul bead." Xiao Xilan didn't hesitate. Her incorporeal body turned into light smoke and drilled into the soul bead. Emo Tienga put the soul bead away and sighed with relief. She looked at Qin Shi. "Let's go." Qin Shi nodded and took the sword light back into his body. The two of them turned into flight lights and flew towards Jin. *****. 2 days later, Emo Tienga and Qin Shi landed on a cliff outside Wind Breath Valley. Compared to 100 years ago, the fog in Wind Breath Valley seemed to be thicker. They stood on the cliff and saw the fog surging around their feet like waves. Emo Tienga frowned and said, "It's a bit strange." Qin Shi nodded. "And this fog doesn't seem to be natural." As soon as he finished speaking, the two of them looked at each other and looked up at the same time with strange expressions. A sword light appeared in their field of vision. It hovered in the sky a few times then fell down. The flight light dispersed. When they saw the person's face, the three of them were shocked and shouted, "It's you!" The person who fell on the sword light was actually Jing Xingji. The three of them looked at each other. After a long time, Qin Shi asked, "What are you doing here?" Jing Xingji said, "I'm looking for fated chances." "What about you?" He suddenly took a step back vigilantly. "Don't tell me you also know." Before he could finish, Emo Tienga rolled her eyes at him. "If I want to rob you, I'll have plenty of chances." Jing Xingji thought it was reasonable. Fated chances for sword cultivators weren't very useful to them. "Then what are you doing here?" Qin Shi said, "If I'm not mistaken, our goals are the same." Jing Xingji was stunned and stepped back again. Qin Shi was also annoyed. "Do you really want us to rob you?" Emo Tienga also understood. She said in surprise, "What a coincidence. Venerable Swordsman Yuanying also came here?" Venerable Swordsman Yuanying said she once promised a senior of Gujin sect something. In return, that senior gave his junior a fated chance. Someone who could be called senior by Venerable Swordsman Yuanying had to be at least in the nascent soul realm and was older than Venerable Swordsman Yuanying. Wasn't Wander Ziwei such a person? He was a cultivator of Gujin sect 5,000 years ago with amazing divine powers. He was definitely worthy of being called senior by Venerable Swordsman Yuanying. It seemed that Venerable Swordsman Yuanying also came here in the past 100 years and promised Wanderer Ziwei to help him find Xiao Xilan. Wanderer Ziwei, on the other hand, gave his token and promised to give his junior a fated chance because they were both from Gujin sect. What's going on? Jing Xingji was bewildered. The person we're looking for is a senior of Gujin sect, Emo Tienga said. This is the important matter I mentioned a few days ago. Jing Xingji was confused. Emo Tienga was about to explain in detail when she suddenly saw the fog in Wind Rest Valley parting. Someone came up. Chapter 565. Emotienga was extremely astonished. How could there be people in Wind's Rest Valley? Although Wanderziwei only had a wisp of his divine sense left, the great formation he left behind was extremely powerful, so there shouldn't be anyone who could occupy Fengxi Valley, right? With that thought in mind, the newcomer quickly flew over. Not one person, but a group of people. Under the leadership of a core formation female cultivator, 8 foundation-building female disciples flew up on a huge flying sword. The 3 of them stared at the 9 people without blinking. Upon seeing them, the core formation female cultivator looked astonished. Her gaze swept past Jing Xingji then Qin Shi before finally settling on Emotienga. "Little sister Yi?" What she said was a question. Startled, Emotienga stared at the woman up and down. She was about 30 years old and had a gentle countenance. Although she was charming, she was also proud and aloof. She hesitantly asked, "Sister Shang?" The female cultivator arched her eyebrows and smiled. "It's me." Emotienga was shocked. Shang Ruan's current appearance was poles apart from how she looked back then. It wasn't her appearance that was different, it was her bearing that was different. Back then, Shang Ruan was gentle and generous. But under the gentle appearance of the current Shang Ruan was a sharp sword aura. Upon seeing the sword on her back, Emotienga blurted out, "You obtained Wanderer Ziwei's inheritance?" Shang Ruan nodded softly. "This is a fated chance younger sister left for me. If it wasn't for younger sister's kindness, I'm afraid I would have lost my life long ago. How could I have become Master's disciple then?" Although she was only in the core formation realm, Emotienga was already in the nascent soul realm, but Emotienga still called Emotienga little sister, with a calm expression. There wasn't the slightest trace of uneasiness. Upon seeing this, not only did Emotienga not feel offended by Shang Ruan's behavior, she even sighed with emotion. Shang Ruan's temperament had once again improved compared to back then. Even when she saw a nascent soul cultivator, she was still calm and collected. She could even converse like she did back then. But Shang Ruan chuckled again. No matter what, he can't compare to younger sister. In just over 100 years, he managed to advance from the foundation-building realm to the nascent soul realm. He's truly a first-class genius in the celestial pole. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I really wouldn't dare to believe it. Sister Shang isn't bad either. Back then, she was only in the early stage of foundation establishment. Now, she's already in the middle stage of core formation. This kind of speed naturally couldn't compare to hers, but it wasn't inferior to Xianxia School's elite disciples. Shang Ruan chuckled. "It's fine if it's other people, but younger sister praising me like this, it really makes me feel ashamed." Emotienga smiled. When Emotienga saw Shang Ruan again, she exclaimed in her heart. Back then, when she left Shang Ruan in Ziwei's Immortal's cave, she occasionally thought about Shang Ruan and wondered if Shang Ruan survived. She never expected that not only did Shang Ruan survive, but she also obtained Wanderer Ziwei's inheritance. Although Shang Ruan was only in the core formation realm now, with her temperament and Wanderer Ziwei's swordsmanship, advancing to the nascent soul realm was only a matter of time. Shang Ruan paused for a moment. Her gaze then fell on Qin Shi and Jing Xingji. "These two are?" "Oh," Emotienga said, "this is fellow Daoist Jing Xingji from Gujin sect." Shang Ruan's eyes brightened. Right after that, she bowed and said, "Greetings to Senior Jing." Wanderer Ziwei came from Gujin sect, so she could also be considered a successor of Gujin sect. In this way, she and Jing Xingji could be considered fellow disciples. Now that he knew Shang Ruan was that senior's successor, Jing Xingji stopped being careless and politely returned her greeting. "What about this one?" Shang Ruan looked at Qin Shi with a smile. She had a passionate past, so how could she not see that the relationship between the two of them wasn't ordinary? Although they didn't act intimately, there was a tacit understanding and closeness between their actions. They seemed very natural. "This is my senior martial brother and also my Dao companion. We're from the same sect. His surname is Qin, and his Daoist name is Shoujing," Emotienga said calmly. A hint of astonishment flitted across Shang Ruan's face. "So senior is Xianxia School's Qin Shoujing." Her gaze then shifted to Imotienga. With a meaningful look, she said, I suddenly remembered a rumor. Under Lord Daoist Jinghe of Xianxia School, there were 2 genius cultivators. One was a junior in the clan, Qin Shoujing, and the other was his last disciple, Imo Qingwei. I wonder, Imotienga blushed with shame. I didn't tell you the truth back then. Big sister Shang, please don't blame me. Shang Ruan laughed. How could I dare blame you? Younger sister is now a famous top-notch cultivator in the celestial pole. Me calling you younger sister already means I'm climbing the social ladder. Imotienga smiled but said nothing. Shang Ruan then said with a stern expression, You're here to see my master, right? Yes, Imotienga answered. Elder sister Shang, please inform him that I've fulfilled our previous agreement and requested to see Senior Ziwei. Oh! Shang Ruan was surprised but also happy. Did you find Master's wife? You can say so, Imotienga answered. Their agreement was to find Xiao Xilan's remains and bury her together with Wanderer Ziwei. However, Xiao Xilan died in the realm of Ghost City 5,000 years ago, so Imotienga really didn't have the ability to find her remains. Fortunately, she found Xiao Xilan's soul, so they should be considered to have fulfilled their agreement. Shang Ruan nodded. Without saying anything unnecessary, she stepped aside and said, Master ordered us to see him directly if it's about this matter. This way, please. The 3 of them got on the huge sword. Shang Ruan controlled the flying sword and descended to the bottom of the valley. When Imotienga came down from the sword and saw the scene in the valley, she was astonished. Elder sister Shang, this is inside Wind Rest Valley. People were coming and going. Some were practicing swordsmanship, some were planting spiritual plants, some were handling game, and some were teaching children how to read. After taking a closer look, they saw a circle of stone houses built along the bottom of the valley. The scale of the houses was no different from that of a small cultivation group. Shang Ruan watched the scene in front of her with a smile. Back then, Master once saved a clan of mortals and they lived here for 1,000 years. After Master passed away, those mortals moved out of Wind Rest Valley. After I advanced to the core formation realm, Master ordered me to break the Great Formation here and lay a new defensive formation here. That way, Wind Rest Valley would still be a paradise and those mortals would return. I decided to accept disciples here, and I was lucky enough to teach a few disciples. I see. It was no wonder when they came down, there was only fog and no gales. The 3 of them followed Shang Ruan to Xiao Xilan's statue. After the several foundation-building female disciples activated the mechanism, they excused themselves. Please. Shang Ruan raised her hand then took the lead and entered the cave. This Ziwei's Immortal's cave was very different from before. The walls were inlaid with moonstones, and the floor was spotless. Under Shang Ruan's lead, the 3 of them passed through the hall, walked through the stone path, and arrived at the hall where the 5 elements platform was located. Shang Ruan made a hand seal, then a stone platform quietly moved over. After the 4 of them got on it, the stone platform slowly and steadily flew towards the exit. After leaving the 5 elements platform, the passage of corpses and bones also disappeared. Under the illumination of the Mother Moonstone, the 4 of them smoothly arrived at the stone room where Wanderer Ziwei resided. Please wait a moment. Shang Ruan took a few steps forward, clasped her hands, and closed her eyes. It was unclear what kind of spell she was casting. A moment later, a tired voice rang out inside the stone room. Disciple, why did you wake me up? Shang Ruan said respectfully, Master, the person you've been waiting for is here. The person I've been waiting for? Wanderer Ziwei paused for a moment then suddenly said in shock, Little girl, you've actually formed your nascent soul? Imotienga smiled then took a step forward. Senior, long time no see. Wanderer Ziwei was somewhat speechless. He said with disappointment and frustration, Sure enough, the new generation replaces the old. Disciple, how many years has it been? Master, it's been 152 years since we entered the valley. 152 years. Wanderer Ziwei exclaimed. Little girl, you're not 200 years old yet, right? Yes, Junior is 189 years old now. 189? Wanderer Ziwei murmured. When did such a genius appear in the celestial pole? Emotienga wasn't complacent at all. She just said indifferently, what's the use of being a genius under the deification realm? Wanderer Ziwei couldn't help but laugh. Little girl, you're quite ambitious. Emotienga smiled and said, Junior still has more than 1,000 years of lifespan left. If Junior doesn't want to advance to the deification realm, that would be too lacking in ambition. How can cultivators like us not have the ambition to advance to the deification realm? Wanderer Ziwei raised his voice. Disciple, you have to remember this. Shang Ruan smiled bitterly. Master, disciple is 250 years old now, but I'm only in the middle stage of the core formation realm. I can't compare to little sister Yi. Hey, how can you be so unduly humble? Although you started late, advancing to the nascent soul realm in 100 years isn't a problem. When I advanced to the nascent soul realm, I was 300 years old. If my luck wasn't bad, I would have advanced to the deification realm already. Shang Ruan knew her master's temperament, so she could only say, yes, master. Disciple will work hard. That's more like it. Wanderer Ziwei was satisfied. He paused for a moment then said, Little girl, who are these two people to you? Oh, one of them is a sword cultivator. Jing Xingji took a step forward then bowed. Gujian Sect's Jing Xingji greets Senior. The two of them looked at each other and smiled. This guy. He said he didn't want to be bound by the sect anymore, but now, didn't he still consider himself a cultivator of Gujian Sect? You're a disciple of Gujian Sect? Wanderer Ziwei said happily, why didn't Yuanying mention there was a junior with such potential in Gujian Sect? Jing Xingji was silent for a moment then said, I don't dare to deceive Senior. Junior left Gujian Sect 100 years ago. Wanderer Ziwei was dumbfounded then said angrily, What did Yuanying do? She actually expelled you from the sect. Jing Xingji was startled. He hastily took out the small flying sword Venerable Swordsman Yuanying gave him and said, Senior, Junior left Gujian Sect, which has nothing to do with Martial Uncle Yuanying. Martial Uncle also gave Junior the fated chance Senior promised. This is the keepsake. Wanderer Ziwei's divine sense circled the small flying sword then he said, This is indeed my keepsake without a doubt. Does that mean you plan to return to Gujian Sect? Junior, you don't plan to return to Gujian Sect? Wanderer Ziwei said, My secret teachings won't be passed on to cultivators outside of Gujian Sect. If you don't return to Gujian Sect, it's useless even if you bring this keepsake. Jing Xingji lowered his head and said nothing. Seeing that he didn't say anything, Wanderer Ziwei said, Think about it first. Tell me your decision later. He then said to Emotienga, Little girl, what's your name again? Emotienga was speechless for a while then answered, Junior's Daoist name is Qingwei. There's still several decades to go. Why did you come back so early? Do you expect me to lift your restriction out of a moment of kindness? Upon hearing Wanderer Ziwei's matter-of-fact words, Emotienga smiled. Senior, don't tell me it never occurred to you that Junior completed the task you entrusted to me? Wanderer Ziwei paused for a moment. Realizing what she said, he hurriedly said, You said you completed? Emotienga muttered. Not really. Junior couldn't find Senior Shao Xilan's remains, but I found her soul lingering in the human world. Chapter 566. When Emotienga returned to Fengxi Valley, Wanderer Ziwei didn't think she completed the task she entrusted to him. Even he himself felt it was very difficult. If Shao Xilan died in her sect's encampment, with her identity as an elite disciple of a big cultivation group, she only needed to issue a bounty mission in the group. But she didn't. She didn't come back for more than 100 years. Now she came back. From the foundation-building realm to the nascent soul realm in 152 years. This was a legend that couldn't be replicated. Therefore, he took it for granted that she didn't have time to search for the place where Shao Xilan died. She probably came back because she didn't find any clues. He didn't expect she really completed it. Moreover, what she found wasn't her remains, but her soul. Wanderziwei was so excited that he couldn't speak. After a long time, he asked in a hoarse voice, "Soul? Does her soul still exist?" Mo Tiange took out the soul bead from her robe. After releasing thousands of souls, Xiao Xilan was left alone in the soul bead. The soul bead's gray color had faded, leaving only a dim light. Xiao Xilan's figure could be vaguely seen in the dim light. "Let me see her." Mo Tiange put the soul bead away. "Does Junior complete Senior's task?" "Yes," Wanderziwei said without hesitation. "Then Senior, please remove the restriction and fulfill your promise." Wanderziwei sighed softly. "This restriction is ineffective now." Mo Tiange was stunned. "What?" Wanderziwei smiled bitterly. "Although I'm a genius, I can't use a strand of divine sense to place a restriction on a nascent soul cultivator. This restriction is effective during the foundation building realm, and it's also effective during the core formation realm. However, once you form your nascent soul, the spiritual aura of heaven and earth will rebuild your body. How can my tiny divine sense resist the power of heaven and earth? The restriction in your head is still there, but it won't activate. I'll teach you a technique to refine it with your divine sense." Mo Tiange was stunned for a long time. Did this mean that she had been deceived? Even if she didn't come back, the restriction wouldn't activate? She frowned imperceptibly and said, "Senior's method isn't honorable." "Upright?" Wanderziwei's voice was full of bitterness. "No matter how insufferably arrogant you were when you were alive, once you die, you'll have nothing left. Before I passed away, I spent decades setting up a huge array formation in Wind Breath Valley, leaving behind my divine sense and racking my brains to attract foundation establishment cultivators. Why not nascent soul cultivators? Because even if I can trap nascent soul cultivators to death, I have no way of controlling them to fulfill my wish." Everyone was silent. Cultivators like them, no matter how strong they were, could not escape the power of heaven and earth, the rules of life and death. Wanderziwei heaved a long sigh. "Now, you're already in the nascent soul realm, while this disciple of mine is only in the core formation realm. Even if you want to leave Fengxi Valley, I can't do anything about it. I can only blame myself for never anticipating that you'd form your nascent soul in such a short time." "Little Sister Yi," Shang Ruan said sincerely, "my master was wrong in this matter, but he didn't intend to harm anyone. Since I have inherited Master's legacy, and Master is no longer around, I have to take responsibility. Master had promised me everything in Wind Breath Valley. Other than that, I am willing to listen to your orders from now on." When she said the last few words, she lowered her gaze. Her expression was full of respect, no longer as cordial as before. "Big Sister Shang?" Mo Tiange stared at her with a complicated gaze. "You're really loyal and affectionate." Shang Ruan smiled. She stared at the table and said faintly, "Back then, although I survived, my heart was like dead ashes. If it wasn't because Master pitied me and took pity on me, there would have been no Shang Ruan in this world. Master gave me a new lease on life, so no matter how I repay him, it's what I should do." Mo Tiange also felt sad when she recalled what happened between them as husband and wife. No matter how bad Yao Zixio was, the affection between him and Shang Ruan was sincere. Shang Ruan was deeply in love, so after she lost her lover, she presumably didn't want to live anymore. As for Wanderziwei, he was conceited all his life. Xiao Xilan was the only regret he had in his life, but fate made fools of people. They couldn't be together. Both of them were deeply hurt by love and sympathized with each other in the same boat. It was no wonder Wanderziwei took pity on her and passed on his legacy to her. Mo Tiange sighed, then took out her soul bead again. Without saying anything, she broke the bead's bindings and released Xiao Xilan. A wisp of smoke escaped from the soul bead, transforming into a woman's figure. Xiao Xilan opened her eyes and looked around. "This is..." Mo Tiange didn't say anything until a moment later. Wanderziwei's trembling voice rang out. "Xilan." After just 2 words, Wanderziwei was already speechless. Xiao Xilan was suddenly stunned. "You..." A wisp of divine sense and a soul looked at each other without saying anything. Shang Ruan signaled Mo Tiange, and the four of them left the stone room quietly. The stone door isolated the sound, and the four of them stood there in silence. A moment later, Shang Ruan broke the silence and asked with a smile, "Little Sister Yi, how's the situation now? We're in the secular world, so we're not very well informed, so we don't know how the fight is going." "I'm also not sure," Mo Tiange said. "It seems to be in a stalemate." Shang Ruan said with astonishment, "Hasn't the Immortal Alliance been established? With your cultivation level and your position as an elder in the Immortal Alliance, how could you not know the situation?" Mo Tiange said vaguely, "It's a long story. To put it simply, I've been traveling outside for the past few years and haven't been back for long, so I'm not very clear about the situation." Oh. Shang Ruan didn't ask further. She knew some things were personal secrets, so it wasn't convenient for her to answer. "Miss Shang," Xianxia asked, "all cultivators in the Celestial Pole belong to the Immortal Alliance. Have you received any summons?" Shang Ruan shook her head. "With Martial Uncle Yuanying's guarantee, the Immortal Alliance didn't summon us." Shang Ruan paused and looked at Mo Tiange. "If we go to Xianxing School in the future, you'll be in charge." Mo Tiange was stunned. She finally realized Shang Ruan was serious, so she shook her head and said with a smile, "Soon, we'll also have to participate in the war. Big Sister Shang, you don't have to take what I said seriously." She paused for a moment then said, "I won't give up on Senior Ziwei's promise, but since we're fated, I don't want to go to Wine Stop Valley." Shang Ruan felt relieved. She bowed and said, "Thank you, little sister. No need to be so polite." Mo Tiange helped her up. Shang Ruan explained, "There are many mortals in Wind Stop Valley now, so it's inconvenient to move. It's not that I don't want to give it to little sister." Mo Tiange smiled and didn't mind. If what she said was true, Shang Ruan would recognize her as her master. Even if it was for Wanderer Ziwei, who would be willing to be a servant. From Mo Tiange's point of view, taking Shang Ruan as a servant wasn't necessary. She was a nascent soul cultivator now. So many people in Xianxing School worked for her. Jing Xingji suddenly said, "Miss Shang, since you're Senior Ziwei's disciple, Martial Uncle Yuanying must also recognize you as a disciple of Gujin sect, right?" Shang Ruan nodded. "That being the case, even if Senior Ziwei isn't here anymore, you can still return to Gujin sect." Shang Ruan smiled. She understood his good intentions. "Thank you for your concern, Senior Jing. Although Windstop Valley is small, its great defensive formation isn't inferior to a sect's." Seeing how confident she was, Jing Xingji didn't say much. The four of them waited for a long time before the stone door finally opened. Wonder Ziwei's voice rang out. "Come in." Inside the stone room, nothing had changed. Xiao Xilan stood there quietly, looking at them with a calm gaze. Before the four of them could say anything, Wanderer Ziwei already said, "Little girl, thank you for finding Xilan for me." His voice was also very calm. Presumably, the two of them had reconciled, right? Mo Tiange guessed. She said, "If Senior didn't place a restriction on me, Junior wouldn't have gone to look for Senior Xiao. There's nothing to thank me for." Her tone was indifferent and distant. After being deceived for more than 100 years, she often feared she didn't have enough time. Although she didn't mind, it wasn't that she wasn't angry at all. Wanderer Ziwei heard her and smiled wryly. "Girl, you really hold a grudge. You didn't lose anything in this matter. The things I've accumulated throughout my life aren't ordinary goods. Even so, how could money move Mo Tiange?" Seeing that she wasn't moved, Wanderer Ziwei had no choice but to say, "Deification experiences, this should be enough to compensate you, right?" Mo Tiange's eyes finally brightened. "Really? Of course. How can I break my promise to a junior?" Wanderer Ziwei said, "It's fine as long as you don't make things difficult for my disciples." Mo Tiange smiled, revealing her shining teeth. Junior never planned to make things difficult for them. Wanderer Ziwei no longer said anything. His divine comprehension wrapped around her and an art was imprinted in her mind. Soon after, he said, "The deification experiences are in the Rosy Clouds Cave." He said to Shang Ruan, "Disciple, Take them to the Rosy Clouds cave later. Yes, master, Shang Ruan answered respectfully. Brat surnamed Jing, Daoist Ziwei said, have you thought it through? Jing Xingji's expression was complicated. Junior has thought it through. He paused for a moment and gradually became determined. Junior doesn't want to return to Gujian's sect for any purpose. Wonder Ziwei was silent for a while, then said with a sigh, good. You have your own beliefs. Given time, you'll definitely become a grandmaster. Jing Xingji lowered his head and didn't say anything. Comprehending the sword intent of the deification realm was a temptation that sword cultivators couldn't refuse, but he still made this decision. A few days ago, he told venerable swordsman Yuanying that he didn't want to return to Gujian's sect. Now that he wanted to return for the sake of swordsmanship, such an action went against his conscience. However, Wonder Ziwei's tone changed. If you can keep your conscience, you're qualified to receive my inheritance. Jing Xingji suddenly looked up. He was stunned. There was a smile in Wonder Ziwei's voice. Since Yuanying let you come, it means he's approved of you. He's the head of Gujian sect, so why should I worry? Upon understanding the meaning behind Wanderer Ziwei's words, Jing Xingji became excited. Senior, disciple, take him to the sword cave, Wanderer Ziwei ordered. Yes, master. After dealing with these matters, Wanderer Ziwei heaved a long sigh. All right, all of you can go. Being able to see Xylan again before my divine sense dissipates is enough for me. Shang Ruan sensed the sense of farewell in his words. She was stunned. Master. Wanderer Ziwei chuckled. Master can't hold on much longer, so you don't need to be sad. Shang Ruan didn't say anything, but her expression was mournful. Mo Tiange couldn't help but think of Fu Yaozi. She was also silent. I'm already very satisfied to be able to spend my last moments with Xylan. Several dozen years later, I'll dissipate and Xylan will enter the cycle of reincarnation again. Maybe we'll be fated to meet again in our next lives. Go! Wonder Ziwei sounded satisfied. I have no regrets in this life. Shang Ruan lowered her head and solemnly saluted him, then led the three of them out of the cave. Chapter 567. Once she walked out of Ziwei's Immortal's cave, she turned around and looked up. The stone statue, which was hundreds of feet high, was cleaned thoroughly. The woman's face was gentle and elegant, and her long dress fluttered in the wind. She looked lifelike, exactly the same as Xiao Xylan. How much did one miss a person to be able to portray these subtle temperaments so clearly? Do you want to go to the Rosy Cloud Cave first, or the Sword Cave? Shang Ruan asked. Jing Xingji asked impatiently, what's going on with the Sword Cave? Shang Ruan answered, inside the Sword Cave, there's a great formation laid by Master. Inside this formation, sword aura and surging sword intent are everywhere, sealing the sword technique Master comprehended when he was alive. Oh! Wanderer Ziwei's talent was indeed astonishing to be able to set up formations with swordsmanship. So you're saying we have to slowly comprehend it inside the sword cave? Mo Tiange asked. Shang Ruan nodded. Correct. Back when I entered the cave, I spent 3 whole years comprehending it. Mo Tiange raised her head to look at Jing Xingji. Fellow Daoist Jing, since you've entered the sword cave, we'll take our leave first. Jing Xingji's mind was on the sword cave, so he waved his hand indifferently. Whatever. In any case, I'm not going back to Kunwu. Upon seeing his expression, Mo Tiange smiled and asked, do you still have the thunder beads you used in Sandstorm City? Thunder bead? Jing Xingji recalled. He fished out one and was incomparably generous. I obtained this in the bottomless ruin sea. I'm giving it to you. She then said to Shang Ruan, I'm afraid fellow Daoist Jing can't wait any longer. Let's take him there first. Seeing how impatient Jing Xingji looked, Shang Ruan also pursed her lips into a smile. The two of you, please wait here for a moment. Right after that, she turned around and said, Senior Jing, please come with me. Jing Xingji nodded and turned around to wave at them. Let's go. Not long after, Shang Ruan came back. She took the two of them to Cumulus Cloud's cave. On the way there, she introduced the place to them. Cumulus Cloud's cave is where Master hides his treasures. All of Master's treasures are inside Cumulus Cloud's cave. Emotienga looked at the busy mortals and cultivators in the valley and asked, "Where are the resources you need to cultivate?" Shangruan answered, "There are a lot of medicinal gardens in the valley and quite a lot of spiritual plants are planted there. In addition, there's a small spirit stone mine beneath the spirit vein. Although it's not big, it's enough for us to cultivate." Emotienga nodded lightly. In that case, she wouldn't have to worry about taking Wanderer Ziwei's treasures. Accumulated Cloud's cave was located on a cliff in the middle of the valley. Shangruan flew them up and used a special technique to open the restriction. Only then did Accumulated Cloud's cave's true appearance appear. As soon as they entered the cave, Emotienga and Xianxia were shocked by the things inside. There were all kinds of ores and high-grade spirit stones, as well as all kinds of magic treasures and magic tools. Wanderer Ziwei definitely wasn't a good person. How many cultivators did he have to kill to collect so many things on his own? Look, there's even a demonic technique jade scroll. After recovering from her shock, Emotienga started to discuss with Xianxia. "Senior martial brother, these spirit tools and magic tools are useless to us, so we don't need to take them with us, right?" Xianxia smiled and said, "You decide." Emotienga looked around and put most of the things into her Qiankuan ring. She then said to Shangruan, "Big sister Shang, we don't need the rest." Shangruan bowed gratefully. "Thank you, little sister." The things left behind were mostly spirit stones and low-grade magic tools, which happened to be useful to them. After leaving Accumulated Cloud's cave, Emotienga said, "Big sister Shang, we'll leave now. If you need anything in the future, you can come to Xianxia School to find us." Shangruan nodded and said jokingly, "Gujin sect has martial uncle Yuanying and Xianxia School has little sister Yi. I'm really lucky to have two nascent soul cultivators as my backers." Emotienga also smiled. "That being the case, we'll meet again someday." "We'll meet again someday." Under Shangruan's gaze, the two of them flew away. Upon returning to Xianxia School, Emotienga immediately heard a piece of news. Luo Fengxue successfully formed her gold core and would soon take over the position of the school head. Thus, she went to Sweet Dew Peak right after she returned to her cave. The disciple on duty on Sweet Dew Peak saw her and immediately went to report to Luo Fengxue. Luo Fengxue quickly came to greet her. "Martial Uncle Qingwei." They hadn't seen each other for 100 years, but Luo Fengxue still looked the same. Emotienga looked her up and down, then said with a smile, "This is the first time I've heard you call me Martial Uncle. It feels good." "That's easy. I'll call you that every day." Luo Fengxue smiled, pulled Emotienga's hand, and walked towards her own cave. "How long has it been since we last met?" The last time was when Martial Uncle Shoujing formed her nascent soul. After sitting down in Luo Fengxue's cave, Emotienga asked, "I heard you're going to take over the position of the school head." Luo Fengxue nodded. "Senior martial brother Shin's lifespan is almost up, so he wants to resign from the position of the school head, so I took over." Emotienga frowned. "These are troubled times. It's not easy to be the school head. Wars were frequent. Not only did the school head have to deal with general affairs, but he also had to dispatch disciples and prepare supplies. It was very complicated. Aside from me, who else would want to be the school head?" Luo Fengxue said self-deprecatingly, "In peaceful times, everyone would fight to be the school head, but now, they're hiding as far away as they can." Seeing that Emotienga was still frowning, Luo Fengxue smiled and said, "You don't have to feel unjust for me. Being the school head has always been one of my goals. You also know what kind of person I am. I don't have such great ambitions to become a nascent soul lord Daoist and oversee a peak." Emotienga relaxed her brows. "It's good that you're willing." Luo Fengxue looked her up and down, then said, "You've been gone for dozens of years. Grandmaster and Martial Uncle Shoujing were both worried that something might have happened to you. I was the only one who wasn't worried. I knew you'd come back safely." Emotienga smiled. "Am I an unkillable cockroach?" "Who said you're not?" Luo Fengxue blinked. Think about the demonic beast riot last time. You survived that kind of situation. The corners of Mo Tiange's mouth curled up. What Luo Fengxue said was right. Ever since she started practicing aura refining, she'd faced many dangerous situations and escaped from death. When I came out of closed-door meditation, I heard that not only did you come back safely, but you also formed your nascent soul, Luo Fengxue said enviously. Luo Fengxue said enviously, back then, we were building our foundations together. Now, you're already a Lord Daoist of the nascent soul realm while I've barely formed my gold core. I'm afraid I won't have a chance to form my nascent soul in the future. Mo Tiange said, you haven't reached 200 years old yet, so your lifespan is still very long. How could you possibly not have a chance? Luo Fengxue shook her head. I don't have a firm Dao heart like yours, so the possibility of me forming my nascent soul is very small. Let's not talk about me. You've been gone for 100 years. There must be a lot of stories, right? Hurry up and tell me. Mo Tiange couldn't help but laugh. Even though she formed her gold core and was already a high-level cultivator, Luo Fengshue's personality was still the same as before she built her foundation. Luo Fengxue couldn't help but sigh as she listened to Mo Tiange roughly narrating her experience. You're really bold. There were so many nascent soul cultivators, but you actually dared. Mo Tiange picked up the teacup, took a sip and said with a warm smile, there's nothing I can do. If I don't dare, I'll lose my life. That's true. Mo Tiange put down the teacup and muttered, there's something I need your help with. What is it? Luo Fengxue asked curiously. You're a nascent soul Lord Daoist now. Is there something you need my help with? Mo Tiange chuckled. You're the future sect head. If I didn't ask you for help, who would I ask for help from? What's the big deal about the sect head? Luo Fengxue said in a self-deprecating manner, I'm just a steward with a bit more power. It's only because of the unusual times that I'm in charge of more things. Mo Tiange knew Luo Fengxue was just being modest. On the surface, with the nascent soul Dao lords around, the sect master had very little authority. In reality, apart from these nascent soul Dao lords, everyone else had to obey the sect master. The sect master had the right to appoint the deacon elders of each hall, had the right to intervene in any hall's affairs, had the right to allocate resources, and was also in charge of the sect's treasury. If it weren't for the fact that they were currently facing a war and the responsibility of the sect leader was too great, and that there were nascent soul Dao lords keeping an eye on things from above, making it impossible for them to do anything, the sect leader would definitely be a cushy job that all the core formation elders would fight for. Nevertheless, Luo Fengxue could be considered to have gotten what she wanted. Her ambition was never in the field of cultivation. If you have something to say, just say it. With your current status, tell the steward's hall. Would they dare to not do their best? Mo Tiange said, I want to find a place. She roughly told her about the 5 souls sacrificial temple. Since there's an azure dragon, a white tiger, a vermilion bird, and a black tortoise, it's very likely that there's a qilin there. That's easy, Luo Fengxue said. Just put up a task in the steward's hall and send some disciples to pay attention to this information. It's just that the chances are rather slim. That's why I came to say hello to you. Mo Tiange looked at her and said with a smile, it's a task that's difficult to get results. Other people might not pay attention to it, so I'm just telling you to pay more attention. Rest assured, I'll keep an eye on it. Even before she took office, Luo Fengxue had already carried out the tasks of the sect head. Half a day later, Mo Tiange stood up to say goodbye. Luo Fengxue saw her off. In 10 days, my core formation ceremony will be held together with the sect head succession ceremony. You and Martial Uncle Shoujing must come to support me. Rest assured I'll be there. Luo Fengxue was still worried, so she repeatedly warned Mo Tiange several times before letting her go. Mo Tiange was in a very good mood. Yi Jingwen and Luo Fengxue had formed their gold cores. Her former friends were all on the path to the gold core realm. Speaking of which, Jinji had already reached the peak stage of the foundation building realm and would soon form his gold core. After returning to Clear Spring Peak, Mo Tiange and Qin she sorted out their gains from this trip. She examined the spiritual beast bracelet given by Devil Monarch Night Frost and found nothing abnormal. In the future, the 3 spiritual beasts could all be stored inside it, so there was no need to carry a pile of spiritual beast bags. Thinking up to this point, she entered the virtual sky world and released the 3 spiritual beasts. In terms of cultivation, spiritual beast bags were naturally inferior to the virtual sky world. Just as she opened Feifei's spiritual beast bag, a vast and austere aura rushed out. Feifei! Mo Tiange was shocked to see Feifei rolling on the ground. She hastily picked it up. What's wrong? In the golden light, Feifei struggled to open its eyes. But the white tiger's breath all over its body was strong and ruthless. Can't you absorb this aura? Feifei, bound by the white tiger's breath, said with difficulty, I want to enter closed-door meditation. But Mo Tiange didn't hesitate and put it back into the spiritual beast house. The white tiger's breath soon filled the entire virtual sky world. Xiaohua and Xiaofan hid far away, not daring to approach it. Mo Tiange felt even more uneasy. Could it be that Feifei couldn't tame these white tiger's breaths? What should she do? These white tiger's breaths were too ruthless. If Feifei couldn't tame them, it would suffer a backlash. Time gradually passed, but the white tiger's breaths were still strong. Mo Tiange laid a meditation formation outside Feifei's spiritual beast house, hoping it could help it. Apart from this, she was helpless. She could only pray that Feifei could pass this hurdle safely. Chapter 568. 10 days passed, but Feifei still hadn't come out. Mo Tiange pondered for a moment, then decided to go to Luo Fengshue's core formation ceremony and sect head succession ceremony. With Feifei's personality, if there was any danger, she would have told her long ago. If she didn't say anything, she would probably be able to handle it herself. Because Luo Fengshue was going to inherit the position of school head, her core formation ceremony was much grander than others. Not only did all of Xianxia School's disciples come to watch the ceremony, but even cultivation groups that were on good terms with her also sent people to congratulate her. For this reason, Miaoyi and Xianyin had specially used the 3 Pure Ones Palace on the main peak. They were the only nascent soul cultivators in Xianxia School during this special period. The others were either in Kuanzhong City or resisting the beast cultivators and devil cultivators, so they couldn't return. However, the 4 grand elders who stayed in the sect were all present, which could be considered very grand. Dressed in splendid attire, Luo Fengshue accepted the sect elder identity tablet sect headship bestowed upon her. She then knelt in front of Lord Daoist Xianyin, asking him to bestow her a Daoist name. With a smile on his face, Lord Daoist Xianyin looked at Luo Fengshue and said, "The path to becoming an immortal is boundless and unpredictable. If you don't have a firm Dao heart, it'll be difficult for you to reach the end. I will bestow upon you the Daoist name, Bingxin. I hope that you will hold fast to your Daoist heart, reflect on yourself from time to time, and walk further on the path of immortality." Disciple Bingxin thanks Master for bestowing this name upon me. With a solemn expression, Luo Fengshue kowtowed to express her gratitude. After kowtowing, sect leader Shen said with a smile, "The ceremony is over. Junior Martial Sister Bing exit, please rise." Luo Fengshue stood up and was led by school head Shen to the middle of the hall. School head Shen then said in a loud voice, "Disciples, I hereby announce that Sweet Dew Peak's disciple, Luo Fengshue, has been bestowed a name by her master, Lord Daoist Xin. From now on, her name is Master Daoist Bingxin." The nearby core formation cultivator congratulated her. Congratulations to Junior Martial Sister Bingxin for advancing to the core formation realm. After the core formation cultivator, the other foundation building disciples also saluted and congratulated her. Disciples congratulate Martial Uncle Bing Xian for advancing to the core formation realm. The aura refining disciples in the square shouted in unison. Disciples congratulate Master Daoist Bing Xian for advancing to the core formation realm. After Mo Tiange's disciples finished congratulating her, friends from other cultivation groups came forward one after another. Congratulations, Master Daoist Bing Xen. Xianxia School has gained another core formation master. The core formation celebration could be considered to have come to an end. However, Luo Fengshue's situation was different. School head Shen didn't order the disciples to leave. Instead, she once again stood in front of the crowd. As sect head Shen's gaze swept over the foundation building and aura-refining disciples lined up neatly outside the hall, her eyes became slightly moist. Scenes from the day she took over the position of sect head Shen flashed before her eyes. It had been more than 200 years since he became the sect master. In the past, when he became Lord Daoist Xinyang's disciple, he also had the ambition to form his nascent soul and go further on the path to immortality. Unfortunately, his aptitude was ordinary and his luck wasn't good enough. Among his fellow apprentices, he was ranked last. His lifespan was over half, but he was still at the early stage of core formation. As he grew older day by day, he knew that nascent soul was getting further and further away from him. At that time, the former sect head abdicated. Lord Daoist Xinyang wanted to choose one of his disciples to be the next sect head, so he stepped forward. In terms of talent, he was only mediocre. In the past 200 years, he had only made mediocre achievements. However, during his tenure, Xianxia School became the #1 cultivation group in the celestial pole in one fell swoop. 200 years had passed, and he didn't have much lifespan left. Managing the affairs of the sect was becoming more and more difficult. After hesitating for a long time, he finally decided to abdicate and return to the clan. The new generation was replacing the old. His era was over, so it was better for him to return to his family and educate his descendants. Disciples, sect leader Shen said in a low voice, I have held the position of sect leader for a long time. Now that I am old and weak, I am unable to continue working for the sect. Therefore, I have decided to abdicate my position. He turned around, looked at Luo Fengshue next to him, and said, Today, Lord Daoist Xuanin's disciple, Bingxin, is young, promising, and has outstanding abilities. After several discussions among the Grand Supreme Elders, they decided to let her succeed as the sect head. Right after he finished speaking, aside from the core formation cultivators who remained calm, the foundation building and aura refining disciples were extremely astonished. Many people uttered, "Ah," and the square immediately buzzed. Many people whispered to each other. Martial Uncle Luo has just reached the core formation realm, and she's already taking over as the sect head? There doesn't seem to be such a precedent in our sect. Yeah, Martial Uncle Luo is only a little over 100 years old. She's so young. There was no news at all before. How did she hand over the position of sect head? Those core formation martial uncles already knew about it, right? Our ranks aren't high enough, so of course we didn't hear about it. Martial Uncle Luo is also not bad. She's good-tempered and beautiful. Yeah. All the disciples were very satisfied with Luo Fengshue succeeding as the sect head. The female disciples thought she was capable, and the male disciples thought she was beautiful. Regardless of the reason, they all agreed. Seeing this scene, sect leader Shen once again sighed inwardly. Soon after, he led Luo Fengshue to kowtow to the patriarch. After kowtowing, sect leader Shen took out a square seal. This is Xianxia School's sect head seal. I'll give it to you now. I hope you'll do your best for Xianxia School. Luo Fengshue took it and said respectfully, Yes, sect head. Sect leader Shen let go of her hand. From now on, you're the sect head of Xianxia School. Then she took 2 steps forward, turned around, and bowed. Disciple kowtows to sect head. The core formation cultivators on both sides also turned around and saluted. Greetings, sect head. After them were the foundation building disciples outside the hall and the aura refining disciples in the square. Greetings, sect leader. Thousands of disciples shouted in unison, their voices shaking the heavens. Disciples, please rise. With a smile on her face, Luo Fengshue motioned for them to rise. She already had the demeanor of a school head. With a smile on her face, Mo Tiange couldn't help but recall the first time she met Luo Fengshue. Mo Tiange never expected that Luo Fengshue, who was still an aura-refining disciple when they met, would one day inherit the position of sect head and become the head of the Celestial Pole's #1 cultivation group. Even if the nascent Soul Dao Lords were no longer cultivating in seclusion today, her position as the sect master was not light. All the Grand Supreme Elders left the mountain to participate in the war between beast cultivators and devil cultivators. Luo Fengxue was in charge of all matters related to supplies, personnel, and the like. Although the benefits weren't much, the weight was extremely heavy. After the sect head succession ceremony ended, all the disciples dispersed. The core formation cultivators entertained the guests while the new sect head, Luo Fengxue, followed the Grand Supreme Elders towards Lord Daoist Xuanin's Immortal's cave. The 4 Grand Supreme Elders sat down, but Luo Fengxue, the new sect head, had to stand. There was nothing she could do. Although she was the sect leader, the Grand Supreme Elder was even more powerful. Junior Martial Brother Shoujing, Junior Martial Sister Qingwei, Lord Daoist Xianxia said. They didn't expect their names to be called first, so they immediately answered, "Yes, Senior Martial Brother." Lord Daoist Xianxia looked at them and said, "Master sent me a message. When you've rested enough, go to Kuanzhong City to replace Senior Martial Brother Huayan and Junior Martial Brother Lingxi." Qin Shi nodded. "Got it." Lord Daoist Xianxia said gently, "Master said you've had enough of a carefree life before, so you must work hard now. It hasn't been long since you formed your nascent souls, so it's time for you to gain experience. Don't complain about the hard work." The 2 of them nodded. Miaoyi looked at them and smiled. "You'd better hand over your tasks to your disciples. Senior Martial Brother Jing has said this time, he'll let you gain experience well." Lord Daoist Miaoyi emphasized the word, well. Since Lord Daoist Jing has said that, he most likely didn't want them to come back in the near future. The 2 of them didn't have any objections. They indeed hadn't worked for the sect for a long time. Besides, it hadn't been long since they made realm breakthroughs, so they didn't need to enter closed-door meditation for the time being. Lord Daoist Xianxia got down to business. "I called you here because I have something to tell you." The other 4 people's gazes fell on him and they listened attentively. Lord Daoist Xianxia didn't keep them in suspense. He simply said, "Beast cultivators have been discovered in the Eastern Sea." The Eastern Sea? Mo Tiange lowered her head. She suddenly thought of something and her expression changed greatly. "Where's the Eastern Sea?" Lord Daoist Xianxia didn't answer directly. He said, "Kunwu and the Eastern Sea aren't directly connected, and there's also demonic mountain between them. Beast cultivators can't threaten us for the time being. However, there's a Dao cultivation group on the shore of the Eastern Sea that's facing attacks from demonic beasts." Mo Tiange looked at Lord Daoist Xianxia and asked, "Bishuan Court?" Lord Daoist Xianxia nodded. "Yes, it's Bishuan Court." "Junior Martial Sister Qingwei, why do you look so unsightly?" Mo Tiange took a deep breath and said, "I'm old friends with Bishuan Court. I once accepted Bishuan Court's offerings and was their guest elder." Lord Daoist Xuanin's expression turned solemn. "Senior Martial Brother Xianxia, how's Bishuan Court now?" Seeing that she was a bit nervous, Lord Daoist Xianxia comforted her. "Don't worry too much. Bishuan Court didn't suffer many casualties." Mo Tiange's expression relaxed slightly. She nodded and said, "That's good. Senior Martial Brother Xianxia, what's going on?" "Let me explain." Lord Daoist Miaoyi took over the conversation. About a month ago, several cultivators appeared in the transporting formation Bishuan Court set up in Kunwu. All of them were injured. As soon as they arrived in Kunwu, they went to Tiandao sect. Tiandao sect's fairy Fengqing asked for the reason and sent a message to Kuanzhong City. Bishuan Court's people said a large number of demonic beasts suddenly appeared in the Eastern Sea. They seemed to be driven by beast cultivators and attacked Bishuan Court with a purpose. They couldn't resist, so they sent people to Kunwu to send a message. The Doyan Council heard about this and ordered Fairy Fengqing to investigate. Once Fairy Fengqing went, she realized the severity of the matter. There were countless demonic beasts in the Eastern Sea attacking Linhai town. Bishuan Court had a great mountain protecting formation, so their losses weren't serious. However, those mortals almost all suffered. After Fairy Fengqing killed those demonic beasts, she chased after them and found that some beast cultivators built a city on the water on the eastern sea island. What? Tiange and Xianxia were extremely shocked. Demon City? Did those beast cultivators want to attack Kunwu? Lord Daoist Miaoi continued. In the Demon City, Fairy Fengqing found traces of beast cultivators. This matter wasn't something she could handle alone, so she reported it to Kuanzhong City. According to the information Fairy Fengqing sent back, the Doyan Council decided to send a group of cultivators to the Eastern Sea to keep watch. In case the beast cultivators really covet Kunwu, they'll stop them at the shore of the Eastern Sea. Xianxia said, "We're fighting on two sides now. If we still need people to keep watch in the Eastern Sea, will there be enough manpower? That's why we have to invest more manpower." Lord Daoist Xianxia sighed. "After the two of you go, I'm afraid Senior Marshal Sister Miaoi and I will also have to go. Only 2 people can stay in the sect to take turns. Moreover, core formation and foundation building disciples also have to fight." Lord Daoist Miaoi looked at Luo Fengxue. "Fengxue, there's no time for you to slowly adapt to your responsibilities as the sect head. You have to think of a way to prepare enough supplies for the disciples to fight." "Yes," Luo Fengxue said solemnly, "Disciple will definitely do her best." Chapter 569. After returning to their cave, they summoned Yi Zhenji and Shui Linbo. "Anti-Master." Yi Zhenji came in first. "Greetings, Grandmasters." Shui Linbo saluted them respectfully. Tiange looked at her with a smile and said, "I've sent a message to the Steward's Hall to accept you as a registered disciple. From now on, you can just call us like Zhenji." Shui Linbo was stunned, but her eyes were filled with great surprise. She hurriedly kowtowed. "Thank you for your kindness, Grandmasters." Previously, although she took care of their Immortal's caves, she was still an ordinary foundation building disciple of Clear Spring Peak in name. It was only because of her relationship with Yi Zhenji that she obtained the opportunity to serve the 2 Grandmasters and also their support. In Xianqing School, many foundation building disciples were jealous of her and even gossiped behind her back because she didn't have a status but got something she shouldn't have. But now, as a registered disciple of a nascent soul cultivator, she finally got the identity she dreamed of, and no one questioned her identity and status anymore. "You've taken good care of the cave. This is your reward." Over the years, Shui Linbo had almost never entered closed-door meditation. She conscientiously took care of the cave and handled chores for them. They weren't stingy people. Giving her the status of a registered disciple was a piece of cake for them. "Yes," Shui Linbo said gratefully, "Linbo will do her best to do things for Grandmaster." "I told you, you don't have to call me Grandmaster anymore." Shui Linbo hesitated for a moment and said, "Tiange." Tiange nodded with a smile and turned to Xianxia. "Do you want to say it?" Xianxia nodded and said, "I have something to tell you. You have to be prepared." Yi Zhenji and Shui Linbo stood respectfully in front of him and said, "The current situation is critical. Soon, the 2 of us will leave the mountain. Zhenji, you've reached the peak stage of the foundation building realm, and it's time to prepare for the core formation realm. You'd better go out to gain experience. Only when your mental state is strong enough can you prepare to form your core formation realm." "Yes, Master," Yi Zhenji answered without hesitation. Xianxia smiled and said, "Let me make it clear to you first. You're going out to gain experience, not with us." Yi Zhenji was stunned. "Master, what do you mean?" "It means that you can't go the same way as us. You have to rely on your own strength to survive the battle and find an opportunity to form your gold core." "Really?" Yi Zhenji wasn't worried at all. Instead, he was eager to try. "Then where should I go? South? Or Tandao sect? We'll talk about this later." Xianxia turned his gaze to Shui Linbo, who was deep in thought. "Linbo, what do you think?" Shui Linbo hesitated for a moment and said, "Master, I also want to go and gain experience." Xianxia said, Ever since you entered the school, you've never left the school, so it's only natural for you to go and gain experience. Cultivation isn't like cultivating behind closed doors. Without experience, you can't cultivate your mental state. If your mental state isn't strong enough, it will be difficult for you to advance. If you want to reach core formation, you really do need some experience. But, at this point, his tone changed. Shui Linbo looked up nervously, but Xianxia said, "You can go, but not with Xinji." Shui Linbo was taken aback. "Why?" Tiange said, "You have more ideas than Xinji. If you go together, Xinji won't have enough experience, so it's better if you go separately." Shui Linbo turned her head and glanced at Yi Xinji. Then she turned back and nodded firmly. "Yes." She thought for a moment and said, "But about the cave, it's okay," Xianxia said, "let the steward's hall send someone. You just need to sort out the affairs of the cave and hand them over to them." "Yes, master." Then, Xianxia dismissed the two of them and said, "We should also get ready." According to senior martial brother Xianin, their trip might take several years or even more than 10 years, so they had to be prepared. Tiange got up and suddenly felt something. She touched the space between her eyebrows and entered the virtual sky world. The white tiger's breath that filled the whole virtual sky world had disappeared and was replaced by a thick and sharp breath. Tiange was delighted. She walked to the front of the spiritual beast house and called, "Feifei?" There was no answer for a long time, but Feifei's breath was clearly in the spiritual beast house. Was it still absorbing the white tiger's breath? When Xianxia absorbed the vermilion bird's breath, it took him a long time. Maybe it was the same for Feifei. She turned around and was about to go back to the cultivation room when she suddenly heard a soft squeak behind her. The door opened. "Feifei?" She looked happy and turned around. But the next moment, she was stunned. "How is it?" A clear and pleasant voice came, carrying Feifei's unique laziness and arrogance. But, why is there a person standing in front of me?" Tiange pointed ahead in a daze. "You, what?" Tiange blinked several times before she was sure what she saw was real and that she wasn't hallucinating. Standing at the door of the spiritual beast house wasn't the golden-furred Feifei, but a yellow-clothed teenager. The teenager was thin, handsome, and dressed in yellow clothes, which made him look as white as snow. At this moment, he was leaning against the door lazily with his arms crossed. At first glance, it was hard to tell whether he was a man or a woman. Tiange stared at him for a long time, but the first thing she said was, "What? You're not a female?" The teenager was stunned. His fair face suddenly turned red, and he pointed at her. "You don't even know whether I'm male or female." "I'm not a Feifei. How could I tell whether you're male or female?" The teenager almost couldn't breathe. He'd been with her for more than 100 years, but he didn't even know whether she was male or female. "What kind of master is this?" Tiange continued, "You love beauty and have a proud temperament, so I naturally thought you were female." "Nonsense," the teenager said angrily. "You humans love beauty, but we spiritual beasts love beauty. If you don't love beauty, how can you attract females to mate with you?" "Feifei, you're so direct. Do you want to find a female Feifei to mate with?" As soon as this sentence came out, the topic was twisted. A quarter of an hour later, the two of them sat opposite each other in the cultivation room. This time, it was really two people, not one human and one beast. Next to the coffee table, on the small stove, the water bubbled. The teenager, who was Feifei after its transformation, lifted the teapot and slowly made tea. When it was still in its beast form, it could make tea. Now that it had transformed into its human form, its movements were even more familiar and elegant. The fragrance of tea slowly spread. Feifei picked up the teacup, put it in front of its nose, and smelled the fragrance. It showed a satisfied and intoxicated expression. "I say," Tiange coughed softly. "Do you want to tell me what's going on first?" "What's going on?" Feifei, who was focused on tasting the tea, answered carelessly. "Of course it's about your transformation." Tiange stared at Feifei's face, trying to see a flower. "You obviously haven't advanced to the 8th rank, So how can you transform? Before the 8th rank, demonic beasts were only demonic beasts no matter how strong they were. They couldn't transform into humans unless they advanced to the 8th rank. This was common sense. Tiange had never heard of an exception. However, Fei in front of her was obviously only in the 7th rank, but he succeeded in transforming. Moreover, there were no ears left, no fur left, and no traces of a demonic beast were left. To transform so thoroughly, it must be a 10th rank demonic beast, right? Fei said, "What's so strange about that? The 5 spirits can transform as soon as they are born. I absorbed White Tiger's breath and obtained White Tiger's bone to transform my body, so I have a part of White Tiger's bloodline. Of course I can transform." "I see." Tiange thought for a moment then asked, "White Tiger's breath is so strong, so why didn't you advance to the 8th rank? How can it be that easy for spiritual beasts to advance?" Fei said, "For spiritual beasts, transformation in the 8th rank is like a natural moat. Before the 8th rank, no matter how strong they are still ignorant beasts. Once they advance to the 8th rank, they will gain spiritual wisdom and become the spirit of all living things. This kind of heaven-defying matter can only be obtained through great fated chances. Xiaofan's ancestor lived for 5 or 6,000 years, but he still couldn't advance to the 8th rank. Compared to humans, we spiritual beasts have a much longer lifespan, and reproduction is also easy, so we can give birth to 8th rank spiritual beasts that are no less than human nascent soul cultivators. Is that so? That means it won't be easy for you to advance to the 8th rank. That's not true. The corners of Fei's lips rose slightly. Coupled with his beautiful appearance, he could really be called a flower and the moon. Some time ago, I ate a lot of blood-eating vines, and with White Tiger's power, it's only a matter of time for me to advance to the 8th rank. After drinking a cup of tea, he glanced at her. "What's with your expression?" Tiange said, "It's also a matter of time for Xiaofan and Xiaohua to advance to the 8th rank. They lived in the virtual sky world and had countless spiritual plants, so it was hard for them not to advance to the 8th rank." Fei curled his lips and didn't answer. Speaking of cultivation, it really wasn't his strong suit. If it hadn't happened to meet White Tiger, it would have taken a long time to advance to the 7th rank. Tiange couldn't help but laugh when she saw its expression. Fei, this guy, was hateful, but it had one good point: it never lied. Xiaohua and Xiaofan were stronger than it in terms of cultivation. Although it was unwilling, it had to admit it. "By the way," Tiange said seriously, "after you absorbed White Tiger's breath, did your body change?" Fei raised its head. "What do you mean?" She said, "I know the Fei clan doesn't have the means to fight. It's only their innate talent that allows them to coexist peacefully with all demonic beasts. But White Tiger is known as the Fiend God. It's violent and murderous, and it's very strong. Now that you have the White Tiger's bloodline, have you learned any innate magic?" Fei chuckled but didn't answer. It leisurely drank a cup of tea, then waved its hand. A golden light flew out of its sleeve and deftly circled around, causing the bamboo forest in front of them to collapse with a loud bang. Xiaohua and Xiaofan, who were cultivating, were startled. Tiange was also startled. These bamboos had lived here for tens of thousands of years, so they were hard and extraordinary. Fei just waved its hand lightly, yet it raised a bamboo forest to the ground. Even ordinary core formation cultivators couldn't compare to this kind of strength. The golden light leaped back. Fei opened its hand and grabbed it. This flowing golden light then turned into a slender blade in its palm. Just by approaching it, Tiange could already feel the ruthless aura from the blade of light. It was as if countless saber lights and sword shadows were gathered together and filled the air with a murderous aura. Fei said complacently, "This move is called White Tiger Strike. Once I advance to the 8th rank, ordinary cultivators won't be able to withstand this strike of mine." You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.